Did you order the code red? You don't have to answer that question. I'll answer that question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled to them. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Is it a one, two? Is it a few? Is it a few men who might be good? Is it a few good men?
Little Tom Cruise, little Jack Nicholson awesomeness from That Few Good Men. Yes, sir, that is right.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Non mi piace il feeling. Spirito Santo. I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast. This is Justin.
And I'm Joey.
And in this episode, we're looking back into Oscar history and looking at two pairs of films that went head-to-head, and a lot of people say one of them got snubbed. So we're going to be looking at the classic rivalry of Brokeback Mountain versus Crash and The Social Network versus The King's Speech.
And just a heads up, as always, we do discuss our full thoughts on these films. So if you haven't seen a movie, just skip forward to avoid some spoilers.
And if you want to be a part of our movie club, just make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check us out on Letterboxd. See what movies we have coming up, and you can chime in with your opinions. We'd love to hear from you. So, Joey, it's been a few weeks. You been okay?
Yeah, man. Before I get into that, I'd just like to point out, it's pretty funny you picked this quote. This is the second time I've had this quote as trivia. The first time was many, many, many years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was like on radio, back when you could do, radio trivia and call in and answer stuff. And I won a set of concert tickets answering this the same trivia question. I want to say, I don't remember which concert it was. It was like a year I went to a bunch of concerts. I think it was Papa Roach. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. That's why I just started laughing when you started doing it. But I've been doing pretty well. I haven't really watched any movies, but playing the living daylights out of some video games. Like I beat Uncharted 4. I'm late on that, and then started The Last of Us Part 2. So I've been giving Naughty Dog some love playing some of their games.
Okay. Actually, I have history with that quote as well. There was a college speech class I took, and we had to do an impromptu speech, and lucky me, got movies. I picked out of a darn bowl, and it was movies on the card, and that was how I opened it up. I was like, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth for my speech. And I think most people were like, whoa, doing a double take at what I was up to. But yeah, then I went into a fast fury about my love of movies, which I can talk about.
Nah, we've never talked about movies or anything. Like, what are you talking about? I went back to 40 hours at work this week. Actually, probably cut into me watching some more movies this week. So once I, sat down and started watching the movies for the podcast, I was like, oh man, like I kind of miss watching some movies. Because I don't know, like I kind of just, I didn't really want to watch any. I didn't, I was like big in the gaming mode, and I was like game, and then, sat down to watch the movies, and I was like, oh yeah, nah, this was good. But also, I watched like 4 really good movies, so didn't watch any trash or anything. So, which this year I've watched like really good movies, and so like whenever I start rating movies, and like it's like, all right, where do these fit? And it's like, oh man, these are really good. Why are these this low on my list? It's like, oh good lord. Then it's like, well, all right, well, there you go. So
Yeah, I typically, you know me, I'm all movies all the time. People are always asking me, oh, have you seen Ozark on Netflix, or you have seen Game of Thrones? I'm like, no man, I'm all movies all the time. I don't know, I just kind of dedicated to myself that to a few years ago. If I'm watching TV shows and stuff, I don't know, I just feel like there's so many I still want to watch, and, you know, I'm not going to get them watched if I don't hammer away at them, so that's how I kind of go about it. Man, COVID hitting us back again. I guess South Carolina is a big hotbed for the virus, and yep, infection rates going up. Was on vacation last week. That's why we're a week late with the show. But yeah, Hilton Head, where I went to the beach and the pool and got some sun. Yeah, you would think that there was nothing. I mean, you go into like the grocery store and people all over the place are wearing masks and stuff. But yeah, it's crazy. And come school year again, they're talking about, you know, you have the option of, you know, kids still staying at home or having split days where some go to the school one day, some go to the school the other way. So it continues on with this brave new world. Who knows if when we'll get sports back?
I mean, yeah, I mean they had to open it. They just had to open everything back up for money. Like Myrtle's opened back up, and I've seen where like people from West Virginia have been like just coming to Myrtle Beach and then going back to West Virginia, and so like West Virginia is a big hotbed again. We're a hotbed, you know, because like I said, my work opened back up as soon as the Governor McMaster said we could. And at first we weren't taking cash, and now we're cash, and now I'm back to 40 hours, and you know, and it's like, okay. And you know, some people are wearing masks, some people don't. And you know, it's a thing, you know, and then, you know, amidst all the other stuff, amidst all the racial turmoil, because even though it's not being shown as much, people are still protesting. There's, you know, still all of that going on too. It's a crazy world we're in right now, man. It is crazy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can give people a little break from that mentally, and hopefully get them thinking about some movies. Let's see. Oh, another shout out. I was on the Cinematic Underdogs podcast. Yeah, the host of that, he reached out to me because I posted a review on Letterboxd about Mighty Ducks, and I put it at 5-star, and I put it as like one of my favorite movies, and that grabbed his attention, and so he asked me to be on a show. So that's pretty awesome. That you know, that kind of came together. So I definitely recommend you guys check out the Cinematic Underdogs. They are doing like a whole series on 90s kids movies, sports movies, 90s kids sports movies. Their first episode was Angels in the Outfield. They followed that up with The Big Green, and then I was on the Mighty Ducks episode. So some good guys. Recommend checking them out.
All right.
And then shoot, after we were done talking about the Mighty Ducks, I think we went in a whole slew of conversations about like Korean film and like Criterion, and so yeah, it's a small world when it comes to movie lovers.
Sounds like it was pretty good. I remember last time you talked about how you like went on like a big like 90s movies, 90s kids sports movies kick, and you were like, oh man, I've watched so many of them.
Yeah. Been kind of slowing down, but we'll get into that now. Now Joey does actually. Let's see here. So next we're gonna go into movie night pickup, right? So yeah. What do you got in store for me on that one? And this is the game where Joey gives me two choices, and I'd see what exactly I'd be in the mood to watch tonight.
All right. Well, I think I came up with a good one. So since we're gonna do for something else we have coming on later, I use a little inspiration from that.
Okay.
So I did, and to keep on theme with our episode, it's 90s Oscars snub throwdown.
Okay.
Yeah. So would you rather watch Goodfellas, which lost to Dances with Wolves in 1990,
Right.
or would you rather watch Pulp Fiction, which we all know lost to Forrest in 1994, which may or may not have won. There were a lot of good. 94 was bangers. It was the year of the banger, but still,
Lots of bangers.
yeah.
So you're saying Forrest Gump versus
No, Pulp versus Goodfellas.
Pulp versus Goodfellas. It's been longer since I've seen Pulp, so it would have to be Pulp. I do have a review on both of those already on Letterboxd, which I could sit back, relax, and enjoy them without having to worry about taking notes or whatever. But yeah, it's been a little longer for Pulp, not too much longer. Yeah, so that would be my pick. Although I definitely need to watch Kill Bill Volume 2 first, because I still haven't watched that, even though I said I was going to after that one episode, and still need to watch Jackie Brown. So yeah, been dipping back to the QT well every now and then, which is it's always fun. What?
Okay. Jackie Brown is going to kill me because it's like the only QT I don't have on Blu-ray right now, and since I've been getting like collectors and steals, every time like a steelbook becomes available for it on like Amazon or eBay, I get the notification, and its steelbook is like $75, and it's like I don't see any point in buying a standard Blu-ray because at some point I'm gonna buy the steelbook, so it's like, oh my God, it's gonna kill me. It is gonna kill me. So, but I think I'm in the same boat. Like, it's been a little bit longer since I've watched Pulp Fiction, but not much. So probably Pulp Fiction, and I'm gonna end up watching it soon anyway because I'm in this 10 movies for 3 movies deal with my friend. It was 5 for 1, and now it's 10 for 3, and I've only got like 7 of those movies picked, 8 of those movies picked. So. Or no, it's 9 for 3. 9 for 3. Yeah, it's 9 for 3. So I think it's still a pretty good shot for me. But so yeah, and Pulp Fiction is one of the 5 that I know. So it probably would be Pulp Fiction. But like, actually, I think we're going to watch all of those. I think I'm going to watch both of those movies in that deal. Actually, yeah, Goodfellas and Pulp Fiction are both in that deal. So I'm going to watch both of them really soon.
Jeez, Taxi Driver would definitely be the next Scorsese film I'm going to watch. I've been putting Taxi Driver off way too long. Finally saw Raging Bull a few months ago, and yeah.
Yeah, I saw Taxi Driver 2 years ago, my countdown to 1,000, and now I picked up like a really good collector's edition at the pawn shop that I find movies at. But Raging Bull, like I saw something on my Facebook memories from like 10 years ago or 8 years ago where I was like, I need to see Raging Bull, and I still haven't seen it. Like, I still need to see it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Also, I got, and I'm excited and I can't wait for it to get here. I found one of the Criterion groups that were in. I don't know if you saw it, like the dude selling like his whole collection.
I did see a stack on there at one point, so maybe that's what
he had it in like an Excel file.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think I saw that one then.
Yeah. He had
How many movies?
Oh, it was tons. It was a ton. But he had
Yeah, some of the OOPs you're looking for?
Yeah. He didn't have the Killer, he had the other one. He had
Hard-boiled
for like $20. And paid $25 with shipping. So
not bad.
Yes. He had Ran on there, but I wasn't about to pay $95 for it. Not when I have it on Studio Canal Blu-ray.
Yeah, I have no issue with that Blu-ray, but it'd be great to see it come back to Criterion. There's been a few other Studio Canal stuff that's come back. Now, Joey, like he said, he had not watched a bunch of movies recently, so we'll take a little bit of the razzle-dazzle off with Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and I'll just run down some of the stuff I've been watching lately, because I prepped that, and I want to talk about it a little bit. So, with being on vacation, I had to avoid the urge of watching a movie every single night and then be plugging away at my computer writing reviews, with my in-laws and children all around me. So what I did instead was I tackled another Colossus of the Criterion Collection. Gosh, I've had a couple of these this year. So earlier in the year, I had Satan Tango. That was 7.5 hours. I tackled Gene Dillman this year. That was like 3.5 hours. And then I watched most recently The Immigrants and The Newfoundland, which that's kind of like a 2 set of movies, which is adds up to about 6 hours. And I was like, all right, so what can I watch that's going to, I can just kind of watch it gradually over the course of a week. And so I went to this guy called Berlin Alexander Platz. And what this is it's a 15.5 hour German film / TV show done by Rainer Warner Fassbinder. I'm not sure if I talked about the other movie I watched from him, The Marriage of Maria Braun. He's one of these big Criterion guys in terms of in the collection. But yeah, so I finally wanted to check out this huge work, and yeah, it was something else. You haven't seen Twin Peaks before, right?
No, I haven't seen Twin Peaks.
That would be one of my closest comparisons to that. So I watched this all on the Criterion channel, like an episode or 2 at a time, and it's all about like the Weimar Republic, which was like the government that was in place in Germany between World War I and World War II. I'm not a history major, so don't quote me on the specifics of this. And it's a really, really interesting look at this kind of doofy guy that gets involved with the wrong people and he treats women terribly. It's a look at his life, and he kind of serves as this personification of what the German people were going through, which led them into, the Third Reich taking over in Germany. Really interesting few episodes stretch in there. Towards the end, it seems like it kind of gets stretched out quite a bit and a little bit over melodramatic. But then you get to episode, I guess it's 15, or no, I think that's part 14 is the epilogue, something like that. And the epilogue is just total like surrealism. It kind of looks back through this whole story from like the perspective of like him with these angels, and it just kind of goes all over the place. So yeah, I'm glad that I just kind of spent a little bit of time and knocked this guy out. Probably one of the hardest things to watch is, these huge epics like that. And I mean, a lot of people, they watch The Mandalorian. How many episodes is that? Like 8 or something?
It was like 7 or 8, yeah.
So
6, 7, 8.
It's kind of weird when it comes to like these classic movie versions of series. Like people find it, really intimidating. Like, oh my goodness, when I would ever spend 15.5 hours to sit down and watch something. But I mean, people watch TV series all the time and binge watch that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the same, kind of not. I mean, it's not. It's art house stuff. So it's not as easily digestible as probably like Breaking Bad. But yeah, I'm glad that I got that under my belt. Definitely check out my Letterboxd review. I definitely, go in way more detail. Goodness gracious, when I wrote my Letterboxd review for this, so I got back from vacation, did a little bit of yard work, sat down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start writing. I literally wrote from like 8 o'clock until like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then spent another 2 hours editing the thing. And so yeah, that's how much I had to say about this thing. So check it out if you're interested.
I feel like for this one, because it's broken up into episodes, so it probably feels more like a TV show. But something like
Right.
Showa, which is like 8 or 9 hours long, but it's not broken up into episodes. And like if Showa was broken up into episodes, because it's a historical documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I love historical documentaries, but a lot of them are 1 hour or 2 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
if it was broken up into an hour or 2 hours, it would feel
Shorter.
it would feel much more digestible. And like Showa is actually one I really want to own.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if coming up next month, if I'm going to be able to get more than just Bruce Lee, and if I do, if it might be Bruce Lee in Showa, or it might be Bruce Lee in like one other movie. I don't know. And then if I get Showa, I'm not going to have to watch it because I flipping own it.
Show was broken up into 3 or 4 parts. I forget.
Oh, it is okay. So it does have spots where like it stops.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, it has
so
a natural. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. I thought it was just like a straight. So yeah, okay. So then if it has natural stopping points, then that's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot better.
Now, Berlin Alexanderplatz is it's a TV show, so each episode builds on each other. An easier one to get into is the Decalogue. That's 10 episodes. And each one of those episodes is basically a short film. So I watched the Decalogue over the course of like 2 or 3 months. And it didn't hurt at all to, watch it that far apart. And it's just there'd be like times where I was like really late and wanted something to watch. So I was like, I'll pop in, this 1 hour Polish short film, and gradually got through the Decalogue. Now, it was a lot easier to write about that because I could write about each episode individually, which a lot happens in each of those episodes. Whereas with Berlin Alexander I put the whole thing in one big old entry. And actually, Berlin Alexander, because whenever I first heard this title, I thought that this guy was actually named Berlin Alexanderplatz. But actually, it takes place in Berlin, and Alexanderplatz is actually this transportation hub in Berlin. And so, like I said, it's very reflective of the people of that time. And actually, the main character is Franz. And in listening to some people review this giant, a lot of people compare Franz to Homer Simpson and his intelligence. So, a little nugget out there for you to chew on. All right, moving on right along. Summertime is upon us. I thought it was a good time to pull out good old Chevy Chase and The Vacation. National Lampoon's Vacation, where they go to Wally World. Had a great time watching that. That is the movie where I think most people don't realize how dirty it really is, because I think every time you watch it, it ends up being on like USA on cable, and it probably cuts a lot of the raunchiest stuff. But I tracked down a copy of it, and we watched the full rated R version of that bad boy. There is a lot of stuff that you kind of want to give your kids earmuffs for. Different things about like masturbation and drug consumption throughout, and Clark's Googling that girl, or checking out that girl the whole time. But man, that's so relatable in terms of like being a dad and going on like family vacations my whole life. National Lampoon's Vacation. It's up in my favorites, and it means a lot to me. A lot of people think it's ridiculous, but it's my kind of ridiculous. Have you seen all the Vacation movies?
I think I've seen the Christmas Vacation. I don't know if I've seen any of the other ones. Like, I'm trying to think, and or that they've blended together, or it's been so long since I've seen them. I've seen Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, that's
or Holiday
classic.
Vacation. Yeah, I don't think I've seen just regular Vacation. Or if I have, I don't, it's been so long that I can't, recall it.
I even had a Wally World shirt whenever in high school that I wore a few times. So they have, the first one is National Lampoon's Vacation, where they go to Wally World, and then they have European Vacation, which I've only seen once. And then I've seen Christmas Vacation countless times. And then the last one was Vegas Vacation, which I had a very interesting double header when I watched Vegas Vacation. We were on vacation, strangely enough, in Minnesota with my grandparents. And we got, the first movie was from my mom. We watched The Bridges Over Madison County, which as a kid, I actually really got into that story. I thought it was pretty emotional. And then we followed that up with a very fun Vegas Vacation. So that was a very strange doubleheader for the family. All right. So one more. I wanted a bit of a Tom Cruise-a-thon. Recently, Days of Thunder and Top Gun got released on 4K. I picked up Days of Thunder. I had already had Top Gun on Blu-ray. And I feel the need for speed. Looking forward to writing about Top Gun a little bit later tonight. But, man, that movie absolutely holds up. It's a little bit repetitive with the music, but, oh my gosh, the music's so good that I don't care. Gorgeous cinematography. I'm quickly becoming such a fan of Tony Scott. Rest in peace. I need to watch True Romance again. Gotta check out some more of his flicks. But man, I had such a good time watching Days of Thunder. That movie has a serious dragging point, kind of in the second act period where it kind of really slows down. But man, the racing in that movie is phenomenal, and then all the fighter jet stuff in Top Gun is great. Are you a fan of these movies?
It's been a long time since I've seen Top Gun, but I've watched Days of Thunder so much when I was a kid.
Oh, nice.
I remember him going up Nicole Kidman's legs, explaining to her drafting.
The victory lane. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, they get him the hooker after he wins his first race, and she's a cop, and the race between the other guy like where they race the rental cars, and
yeah, that's ridiculous.
yeah, I remember, like, and I haven't seen this movie in years. There's a movie that it's not actually probably a good movie, but I really like it.
It's mostly a pretty solid 80s guilty pleasure / good movie.
I think it's a 90s movie, isn't it? Like early 90s?
Good question. I'm pretty sure it was late 80s. Let's see here. 1990. You would be the winner. Winner, chicken dinner for you.
Well, I guess in 1990, like that's close. I was thinking it was like 1993. So hey, what do I know?
All right, now, Joey, we are going to our feature part of this episode, which is talking about a bunch of Oscar nominees, a bunch of snubs, a bunch of history. Let's talk about some Oscars. So you had some questions for me. See if I'm really as good of a Oscar guru as I like to think I am on TV.
All right, so let's see what I got for you, fam. All right.
Okay.
I feel like you're gonna know this one, but so we'll.
It's good to tee it up with the softball, yeah.
All right, yeah. What 3 films are the only to win the Big 5?
Is it Ben-Hur? Titanic.
Negative.
Okay, Titanic.
Also negative.
Return of the King.
Also no. No, a lot of those are in some of these questions, but not here.
Is The Last Emperor in there?
All right. One of them is in the 30s, one of them is in the 70s, and one of them is in the 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Striking out all over the place on the easy question.
I thought you might would know this, but I only knew one of them.
Okay. 30s. What was the other decades?
70s and 90s.
Okay, what from the 90s would have swept? Okay, so I guess we need to put a little bit more perspective on this. So this is Best Picture, Best Director, and what else?
It would be in Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Screenplay, I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay. Not Schindler's List. 90s. Oh, is Silence of the Lambs on there?
Yes, that is the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, I think these actors are what's getting me. Okay, you said 70s?
Yep.
It's not Godfather. Is it The Sting?
Nope.
Okay. What's the 70s one?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay. I didn't realize that that would make sense with the nurse in that. And then way back in the 30s, you said?
Yep.
Oh, Shot in the Dark here. Let's see. Is it How Green Is My Valley?
No, It Happened One Night.
Okay.
But random stuff about movies and Oscars. I thought you would know that one. So, especially I figured you would get Silence of the Lambs and maybe One Flew, especially knowing like you kind of like Jack a lot. So,
I think I've heard of Ben-Hur and Titanic being mentioned in certain lists and Return of the King. I think I was thinking of like Best Picture / all the technical awards. I think my brain was a little off on that. So yeah, to recap, Silence of the Lambs and It Happened One Night and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in terms of screenplay, acting, and Best Picture. Wow, there you go.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Question number 2.
I'm a fraud.
All right. Nah, all right. Which movie won the most Oscars? I'll give you a hint. It's a tie. It's a 3-way tie.
Have I already said them? Titanic.
Titanic is one of them, yes.
Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur is one of them, yes.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes, Return of the King is the other one. Yes.
See, that's the question I was thinking about. Not
Yes. The side note: the only other film to notch double-digit wins was West Side Story, which got 10.
Wow.
And then Gigi, The Last Emperor, and The English Patient all took 9, and there's a bunch that got 8, like a ton that got 8.
Nice.
Moving on. All right. What films earned the most nominations? Also 3 movies.
The most nominated films in Oscar history. Oy. La La Land on there?
Yes.
Nice. Is it mostly modern stuff?
La La Land is the most recent.
Okay.
One was when we were children, and then one was before my parents were born. So.
Huh. Is Forrest Gump on there?
Negative. You've already said this movie.
Titanic?
Yes.
And then, what was the last clue, the last hint?
It's from the 50s.
50s.
A movie I've never heard of, for the record.
Oh. Okay.
That doesn't mean anything, but like...
Oh, doity. I don't know, you just hit me with it.
All About Eve.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I saw that pretty recently. Wouldn't have guessed it, though.
Those all had 14. Even La La Land both won 6. Titanic won 11. Difference is La La Land is the most nominated film ever to not win the top prize. Even though, of course, very famously was announced as the winner.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course,
by Bonnie and Clyde.
Yep, and won every Golden Globe.
All right.
Okay, question number 4.
Okay.
Which movie or which movies earned the most nominations without winning any Oscars? That's 2.
There's 2?
2. One in the 70s, one in the 80s.
So the didn't win any is tough. Some killer radio here, podcasting. Can you give me any hints here?
One is by a very famous director by the name of Mr. Spielberg. The other one is from the 70s. I don't really know anything else other than that to tell you. I can tell you the director, Herbert Ross.
You said a Spielberg film from the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
Is it E.T.?
No, that is not the one.
It's not Close Encounters.
Has to do with
the Jaws?
Jaws is from the 70s.
Yeah, Jaws is from the 70s. Oh, that's Color Purple.
Yes, it is The Color Purple.
Duh. I should have known that. And then the other one's some guy named Ross in the 50s, you said?
Herbert Ross in 1977, specifically.
That might try. Not sure. What was it?
The Turning Point. They both had 11 noms and walked away empty-handed.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for The Color Purple that year. That's very, very solid Spielberg. Very emotional film. Yeah, I never heard of The Turning Point.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. And all right, so this one isn't going to ask you about numbers or anything. This one was just, I thought this was a good one. All right.
Okay.
Who directed his own father and his own daughter to an Oscar?
I think I heard somebody talk about this recently. Goodness gracious, and what movie is that? Was it Sierra Madre?
That is one of the movies, yes.
Oh, there's more than one movie here?
Yeah, they're in different different times. The movie that he directed his father to was Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 48, and then he directed his daughter to an Oscar in 1985.
And that would be it's Angelica Houston, right?
That is the daughter.
What is the movie?
Well, I'm looking for the man who did this, not necessarily the movies, even though that was good.
Oh, so it's whatever. Houston. John Houston?
That's the one. Yeah, John Houston directed.
The only reason I know this is because this was totally broken down on a Leonard Maltin podcast that I listened to. That is the only reason I know this.
There you go. Yeah, John Huston directed Walter Huston, his father, to the Oscar in Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 48. And he also won Best Director for that movie. He later directed Angelica Houston to an Oscar for Prizzi's Honor in 85.
Oh, I forgot that part.
Yep, and that is what I have. I could do more. I had a whole page of them, but we got we got other things to do other than read trivia to Justin.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so yeah, I love the Oscars. I have for as long as I can remember. I'm not exactly sure. I remember the first Super Bowl I watched, but I'm not really sure the first Oscar I watched. I actually do remember when my family was watching the MTV Music Award or Movie Awards one year, and I remember specifically my sister and my dad talking about Schindler's List, which was actually nominated for an MTV award. Surprise, surprise. I mean, not that it didn't deserve it, but typically that's a much different award show. Probably much different now than it used to be. I think the last time I watched the MTV Movie Awards, Russell Brand was the host, and he's just like, "Scream if you want to hear, or if you want the Hunger Games to win. No, you scream if you want Twilight to win." So, a much different show than it used to be.
Wow.
But yeah, always really enjoyed the Oscars. I've tried to watch. I mean, it's been like one of the highlights of my year for ages and ages. The last couple of years, I've actually blogged about it on Letterboxd as the whole thing went along. And then last year, Letterboxd, I mean, after racking up like 80 likes on this darn blog talking about all my Oscar thoughts, Letterboxd deleted it. So, was not happy about that. But do you typically... I got a trivia question for you. I hope I didn't write this. Did I write this in the thing? I don't know. I didn't write it in the notes. So this is... You don't know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't... I mean, if you didn't write it in the notes, I guess not.
Okay. Do you know the one Oscar ceremony that we watched together?
Okay, you did write, do I remember that? I mean, I don't remember that, but I mean, I can do some math. It must have been the 2004 Oscars. And I don't remember that.
Okay.
But, I tried to put us watching the movie together that we didn't watch together, that I still maintain that we watched. And then also, hey, it all fades together after a while. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, right after I got into the fraternity, I guess we were already friends, and we watched the Oscars together that year, and we saw Johnny Depp not get Best Actor for Pirates of the Caribbean, which we were bummed about, but we did see Peter Jackson get Director and Best Picture for Return of the King. So we watched that together. I was in your room for that.
So who did get Best Actor then?
Ooh, put me on the spot here.
I mean, I thought you had it
some killer radio going on here.
Sean Penn for Mystic River.
Oh yeah.
Although that let me see. Well, let's click here and
that's right.
Make sure that's the same, because it could be the.
I'm pretty sure that's right, because I see a picture here and it shows Peter Jackson holding up his Oscar glory.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a picture with Peter Jackson. Okay. Yep.
Oh, is that Charlize Theron? Is that the year she won for Monster?
Yeah, Charlize Theron. I've never seen it. Apparently, it's really good.
I've seen the documentaries that inspired it, but I still haven't seen that movie. Okay. So, yeah, I wanted to get in. So, the name of the game tonight is all about snubs. So, I guess we should get into some of the flaws of the. I mean, do you regularly watch the Oscars, or are you a fan? I know a lot of people love to trash the Oscars. I'm definitely an Oscar defender when I can.
I mean, I'm more into I know we don't really have any way to watch it because we don't have cable.
Mm-hmm.
So, we more follow the results and stuff on Twitter and the internet and stuff. So I don't really have any way to watch it, unfortunately.
It's on broadcast TV. A little antenna up.
I'm in the first floor. I don't really have any. I probably wouldn't get very good reception. So, and also now, one of the things. So look at when I was, I did the movie Pick'em game, and I was talking about the 1990s was Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves and The Godfather 3, and then it was Pulp Fiction against Forrest Gump versus was that Schindler's List? Shawshank. Schindler's was the year before, and those movies were pretty mainstream movies. Mm-hmm. And now a lot of them, there's so many movies that are the movie nominees for Oscars. A lot of them feel like they're just I'm gonna make this movie to try to win an Oscar.
Oh, Oscar bait.
Yeah, Oscar bait movies, and now that they've expanded to 10, you'll have Oscar bait movies and maybe one or two bigger movies, and but you just never feel like they're gonna beat the Oscar bait movies because they're just Oscar bait movies. And don't get me wrong, some of those are really good. I feel like one of the movies we're going to talk about versus one of the movies here was an Oscar bait movie, and it won because it was an Oscar bait movie, even though it was actually really good and very entertaining off of the back of all of its actors. But I feel like a lot of the movies now, I only hear about them because they are Oscar bait movies versus some of them being entertaining, if you follow what I'm saying.
It's an interesting term because I typically like Oscar bait movies, what would be considered that, so I've never really viewed them as such. So yeah, it's kind of that's a weird term for me to wrap my head around because, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I typically enjoy these kind of movies that aim high and try for the awards. I think there's a movie from a few years ago from Revolutionary Road, and I remember looking at that and being that probably falls in that category. I've yet to see it, so that's something that falls in my brain like that.
I mean, it just, I get the idea of making movies that, are more than just a movie, that are just entertainment, but at the same time, it's what about movies that are entertainment that are also actually really good versus some of these movies that try to be Oscar bait that aren't even a little bit entertaining. Maybe they're good on a technical level, but, also aren't entertaining. There should be some balance somewhere or something, so sometimes it's, you get these movies that you're man, I've never even effing heard of this. And it's so that's that, sometimes watching the Oscars is not as entertaining, or, you haven't seen them because you go to the movies, it's all right, I got $15. I can see, this movie, or I can go see Avengers 27. All right, I'm going to see Avengers 27. So.
Yeah, I mean, great point. I mean, I'm the kind of person who, as soon as I get access to see an Oscar nominee, I'm going to see it right away. There's been the last couple years, I've seen all of the nominees heading into the show, which has been really nice. So last year, Parasite. So that was the first ever foreign language film. You still haven't seen Parasite, right?
No, I'm behind. There's been I still want to see The Shape of Water. I want to see Parasite. There's a lot of them from the last several years. I'm sitting here saying, oh, I don't want to it makes it sound like I don't want to watch Oscar bait movies, but there are a lot from the last several years that I actually want to watch. I just haven't watched them either. I'm watching. It's just the amount of movies that I want to watch, but unlike you, I do other things and. And it's not a knock against you. It's just I do other things. I made it sound
I'm not a dork, Justin.
No, I think I'm a bigger dork. I play Magic the Gathering and I play video games and I binge watch TV shows and
I think with Parasite, it was finally their chance to give an award to a foreign language film, and it was a foreign language film that most English audience people who watched it really enjoyed. Green Book from the year before, I was happy with Green Book winning. A lot of people thought that movie had the wrong message when it came to race, but I thought it was a pretty feel-good movie that worked for me. But I understand the arguments against it. Shoot, I mean, they nominated Black Panther that year, which I think was kind of a way to get more audience members in. I mean, Black Panther's a very solid movie. But yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Black Panther came out the same year as Ragnarok, right?
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah, it wasn't even the best Marvel movie that came out that year. Like, it was a really good movie.
It definitely had cultural relevance. I know people went in droves to see Black Panther, and I remember taking my kids to see it on opening day and to see so many cultural faces all around me. It was pretty neat to experience that.
And
my favorite movie. Go ahead.
It did have the cultural relevance that like Ragnarok did not have, but like it didn't even have like I said, in my opinion, it wasn't even the best Marvel movie. So like if you're doing this off of solely like this is the best movie, like Ragnarok was a much better comic book movie in my opinion. But anyway, I digress.
I mean, there's a lot of criteria here. I mean, there's a movie that people like, a movie that's artistic, a movie that made money. I mean, there's so many different factors, and I mean, it's never the same one every year. My favorite from that year was actually called The Favorite. That was my.
Well, that was oddly enough because you picked before we changed, you had a category for this year, like a movie, like a highly regarded movie from 2018 that you haven't seen, and that was going to be my movie.
Oh wow!
The Favorite.
I missed out.
Yeah. Well, and then we have another category that we'll get to later this year. I could slot that in there based on that criteria, but I'm not. Okay. But I'm just going to watch it on my own at some point.
Then let's see, the year before that, Shape of Water won, which kind of seemed like an apology Oscar for Guillermo. That was a solid movie. It had a lot to say about like Hollywood and its homages there. I'm just kind of flipping back through the last couple of years, just kind of thinking about this term Oscar bait. The year before that, Moonlight. So that we kind of hit on that already, the debacle between La La Land and Moonlight. After I saw Moonlight, that's probably the artsiest film, I think, in the last couple of years to have won. Which I really need to rewatch Moonlight. And it almost... Mm-hmm.
Oh, just keep going. I have a thing I'll hit on. We can get into it when we're talking about some other stuff. So, because
and I had in my notes a little bit later to mention that I think Moonlight might have been somewhat of an apology Oscar for Brokeback not winning, because Moonlight was finally that big, gay movie that broke through and finally got it. It's a beautiful movie. So that's there. The year before that, Spotlight. I guess Spotlight could probably be slotted into that Oscar bait category. I know the reason that one was it was very, very highly, like they gamed it to win. Like they promoted the heck out of that movie. And that's the most recent Best Picture movie that I actually haven't seen. That was actually the year that Mad Max Fury Road got nominated, but I think that movie's a little overrated. Moving on.
So do I.
Oh, there you go.
Don't get me wrong. I like that movie, and I think it's a very good action movie, and it has a lot of great cinematography. But like, I remember watching that, and then everybody going like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest fucking thing since sliced bread," and I'm like.
I remember thinking it was fun the first time, but I rewatched it, and it's almost too simple. I mean, there's great effects in it for sure, but that's pretty much all it has. I mean, and it's cool that there's a chick kind of at the lead of it. Go ahead.
I mean, I liked it more the second time. Like part of it was I had a friend of mine who was like obsessed with Mad Max, and like at work, all he did for like months leading up to it was talk about that movie. Mm-hmm. And so like it dropped the same day I think as Pitch 2, and so I picked Pitch 2 over that. And obviously, Pitch 2 is not a great movie by any means. Like when we're talking about like especially Oscars and that kind of stuff. But I definitely enjoyed Pitch 2 more than Mad Max Fury Road. I know, just you can crucify me all you want, people who are listening to this. Like, I get it. It's fine. I have a thing for Anna Kendrick. Whatever. Sue me. It's fine.
Then the next year, Birdman won, and that was. I mean, I was kind of dabbling. These are kind of from some of the years where I was floundering with my Oscar interests. I was definitely watching movies, but I was watching kind of more TV shows, doing other stuff. But Birdman is definitely up there in terms of artsy factor. But Whiplash probably should have won.
Yeah, Birdman is really good, and I really, really love Birdman. Having seen Whiplash earlier this year, like, yo, when's my man Damien gonna get one? He's been robbed twice now.
The year before that, 12 Years a Slave, man, that movie is staggeringly beautiful and powerful and just really hit you in the stomach. Yeah, that might be one of the most intense movies I think that ever have won. Yeah, 12 Years a Slave by Steve McQueen. Argo, I guess Argo kind of seems like one of those Oscar baity kind of movies. That's a pretty decent feel-good. Wow, Beasts of the Southern Wild was nominated that year. I need to watch that. Amour was nominated that year. That's a Haneke film? That's pretty awesome. I need to, gosh, even more excuses to watch these movies I've never watched. And let's get moving. The Artist, which I think is terribly overrated. One in 2011, and then 2010, The King's Speech, which we'll get to that here in a moment. All right.
So you've got this Oscar apology theory, which I'm pretty sure I have idea where you're going with this, especially looking at the names here.
Yeah, these are the two key names I thought about.
I think
go ahead and read it if you want.
I'm pretty sure there's one more name that needs to go on here, and it's tied pretty closely to Martin Scorsese. But so Martin Scorsese, Denzel Washington. So Marty got his Best Director 05, 06 for The Departed.
The Departed, yep.
Yep. And then Denzel getting his for Training Day.
He did got a Best Picture for Training Day. I think he got supporting for Glory. But in my heart of hearts, after I watched him and Malcolm X, I was just like, well, he should have been the best actor by far in Malcolm X. But it didn't happen for him then. It waited all the way to Training Day. And I mean, he's Denzel in Training Day. He's fantastic. But I
don't know who he's up against off the top of my head, but having seen him in Training Day, he was freaking great in Training Day. So, like, do you have who he's up against, like, off the top of your head?
Why don't you talk about Marty? Well, the films that Marty was snubbed for, right? So.
Everything.
Everything.
Aviator, Taxi Driver, Goodfellas. We can go on. I'm sure Last Temptation of Christ. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And along with that goes one of his leading men later, being Leo, who did not win in The Aviator, and he did not win in The Departed, but also because he refused the nomination because they wouldn't nominate the whole cast. And I think that they finally just gave him for The Revenant, because I don't remember who he was up against, but I don't think that was necessarily his best role. Like, he should have won for like a ton of other roles before that, including The Departed, maybe The Aviator, which I haven't seen. But
2002 was an interesting year. Let's see. Russell Crowe got nominated for Beautiful Mind. I think he had already won for. Did he win for Gladiator?
Right?
That sounds right.
Gladiator won a ton.
Tom Wilkinson got nominated for In the Bedroom. Sean Penn got nominated for I Am Sam, which I think was my favorite, and I think he got his apology Oscar whenever he won for Mystic River, the one we were talking about a little while ago. And Denzel finally got his due with Training Day, and then Will Smith actually got nominated for Ali that year. So, I mean, this is a whole can of worms when we're talking about years, and there you can just obviously see that there's some times where somebody needed their due and they finally got it, which kind of messed somebody else out of an Oscar, which, they kicked the can down the road a few years. But I mean, the Coen brothers, I'm a firm believer they should have won for Fargo, but they ended up winning for No Country for Old Men, which kind of screws PTA out of getting his Oscar for There Will Be Blood, and he's yet to get his due. So It's a never-ending cycle. But let's dive into some of the top Oscar snubs of all time. Probably at the top of every list is the fact that Citizen Kane lost Best Picture to a movie called How Green Is My Valley. Alfred Hitchcock nor Stanley Kubrick ever got a Best Director Oscar, although Michael Cimino did. And one of these episodes we'll have to talk about Michael Cimino, because I'm not really a fan of that old Deer Hunter. And that's funny. During our catching up segment, I didn't go into this. I discovered a new podcast. It's called Unspooled. Forget the names of the hosts right now, but basically they go through the whole list of AFI, like the best of the AFI list or whatever. And they were talking about the Deer Hunter, and they actually had the exact same opinions I did on that film. They trashed Forrest Gump. So you don't always see eye to eye with the people you listen to. Part of the reason why, I got you to do a podcast with me. You want to read a few of these?
Yeah, all right. So Saving Private Ryan, losing to Shakespeare in Love. I've never seen Shakespeare in Love, so I can't really say anything there. But, I mean, Saving Private Ryan, I do remember being obviously really good and everyone being humongous that year.
That's one of the Weinstein debacles. Apparently, before, they got blacklisted from Hollywood from being creeps. The Weinsteins were really, really good.
I thought only one of the Weinsteins got blacklisted.
I don't know the whole story. I know one of them did. I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Harvey, right?
Weinstein.
Harvey's the real bad. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. So anywho, before we found out that at least one of them was a complete and utter dick bag, shit bag, whatever. Mm-hmm. Continue. So there was a debacle.
Yeah. So they apparently really knew how to game the system in terms of getting their movies by Miramax to win the Oscars, and so somehow they got Shakespeare in Love to go over Saving Private Ryan, which was a huge snub that year. I saw Shakespeare in Love back on DVD way back when. I remember it being fine. There's a lot of good Shakespeare stuff in there. From what you learn from your high school literature teacher in terms of the Globe Theater and stuff. There's references to all that. So, but yeah, Saving Private Ryan's a landmark World War II film that brought you onto the beach of Normandy, and no movie had done before. So,
yeah. Spike Lee.
Yep.
He still doesn't have a Best Director. He got Best Screenplay for Klansman, right?
Yeah. That was. And it seems like a lot of time they use that screenplay Oscar to actually, the most popular / innovative movie of the year. For instance, Tarantino won screenplay for Pulp Fiction, so you kind of get the feel there. Spike Lee wasn't even nominated for Best Picture of the year. That Do the Right Thing did not get nominated. It got beat. But Driving Miss Daisy, which is another controversial race film, won that year. And then he went up against Green Book, and that's kind of a similar, the reverse Driving Miss Daisy, as people call it, another controversial race film. So it's strangely ironic that Spike Lee has gone up against these kind of movies and has not come out on top. But yeah, Klansman, that was a very powerful film.
All right, we got apparently Peter O'Toole couldn't nab a win.
Yeah, he had great performances, and obviously Lawrence of Arabia. He's in another one that escapes my mind, right? I think The Ruling Class. He has a pretty crazy performance in that. 1995, that's the one we keep alluding to. That's where Pulp Fiction, Shawshank, and Forrest Gump all went head to head. Satan Tango came out that year. Red came out that year. Crazy good year for movies. That one in 1999 when American Beauty won. And then Glenn Close has been snubbed over and over and over again. So yeah, lots of I love the show. I love watching all the different montages. It always reminds me why I love movies so much. It's kind of a bummer they don't have a host anymore. I don't know. I guess I don't like to see change, but
no host kind of sucks. That's a they just announce the people who are announcing the winners and stuff now or something.
They kind of they just have a bunch of celebrities throughout just kind of come up and do it. So it's like they have a bunch of hosts instead of just one person kind of telling the jokes or whatever. Last year, I think they started out the show with like a musical number, and then they brought up some funny people to say some stuff. And I don't know, I always enjoyed that one person to like kind of open the show and go from there. But some things must die sometimes. All right, let's get into these movies. We've definitely teed up our interest in the Oscars. So, all right, one of the great snubs that many people talk about, which we haven't gotten to yet, is when Crash beat out Brokeback Mountain for Best Picture in 2006. Joey, how come you want to talk about this one?
All right, so when we were coming up ideas for themes or whatever for this season, what actually originally made me pick this was I don't remember what year. It was a few years ago. Since they've expanded to 10, one year they put 7 or 8 movies out, and left Straight Outta Compton off. And that was originally I didn't expect it to win, but it's that was another racially driven movie, which we've been talking about throughout here, and they didn't even put it up. And I felt I watched that movie and I was like, that movie it really hit, really. I really felt, what they were trying to portray from that time period, the late 80s, early 90s, when NWA was coming out with all their music and all of that. And I was like, you know what, I feel like that would be a good topic. And I was like, well, let me see if I can go through and find some other maybe some snubs of movies that actually lost Oscars. And then, I had Carl with me because he's way much more up on the Oscars and stuff than I am, especially. And I just I went to Wikipedia and I started looking at the winners and losers, and we hit that particular year, which was the 78th Oscars, I believe, and he was just like, no, dude, that's a crazy. He was like, that was a crazy one. A lot of people were upset, and I started kind of looking into it, and I was like, I've never seen Brokeback Mountain. It'd be a good way to watch. It was like it'd be a good way for me to watch this movie, and I was like, I remember I actually watched Crash in theaters, and I was like, actually enjoyed that movie. I thought it was really good. So, I was like, this would be a good way for me to watch both of them. Well, I didn't know at the time we would necessarily watch Crash. I was like, I knew it would be a good way for me to at least watch Brokeback Mountain.
Okay.
And I, the same side of that, thinking about what you would pick, I was like, I had no clue what you would pick, where you would go. And it would be really interesting to see what you would pick. And it turned out actually to be really interesting. I thought maybe you would pick something like old. From back in the day. We actually kind of both turned out to pick things that were pretty new, but
trying to turn over a new leaf this season with a few more modern picks for our listeners.
But no, it was, and then I think that the 4-pack we got here, the big 2 and then the little 2, and that doesn't sound right, but was really good. Like, this was a really good selection of movies.
Yeah, for sure. A lot to talk about here. This was one of the first years I can remember where I did see most of the nominees heading into it. I think the only one I didn't see heading into it was Capote, where Philip Seymour Hoffman won his Oscar. My favorite one this year. Okay, so we had Capote versus Good Night and Good Luck versus Munich versus Brokeback Mountain versus Crash. I think that's all the nominees.
Yeah, because this is back when they still only did 5. And there were a few other movies that probably with today's setup at 10 probably would get nominated.
Walk the Line. Yeah, that was actually my favorite from that year, which I was bummed didn't even get nominated. Although Reese Witherspoon won for Best Actress for that.
Yeah, she did win. Joaquin was nominated and did not win.
Yep.
Which some people would say was a snub. Maybe
not even being nominated.
Huh?
He got with the I wouldn't say Joker's an apology Oscar for Joaquin, but he finally got it there.
I mean, he's such a good actor. And then I mean, I've never seen Capote, so I can't say. I mean, I heard Philip Seymour Hoffman was really good in that movie. Maybe Hustle and Flow would also be nominated, because you usually don't see movies where the actors
that won for best song that year.
Yeah, and Terrence Howard was nominated for Best Actor.
And he was also in Crash. He had a big year.
Yeah, he was in. Yeah, so he had a big year that year. But you usually don't see a movie get nominated for Best Actor and Actress and not be nominated for Best Picture. So, at least not that I can recall. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure, but like.
I was really fortunate to be. So I was in college at the time, and there was an art house theater in Charlotte where we actually got the opportunity to see the Good Night and Good Luck, which I thought it was okay. I was a little underwhelmed by. As a broadcast major, I was really looking forward to that, and then I saw Brokeback there as well. I saw Crash in the theater. I actually saw Munich in the theater when I was overseas, which is part of the story as well. But yeah, I remember really enjoying Crash, and whenever when Walk the Line wasn't nominated and Crash was, I was pulling for that one for my favorite, because at the time I remember all the hype about Brokeback Mountain being, the big gay cowboy movie, and I was curious to see, what that was all about, but I felt underwhelmed by it the first time I saw it. And I was actually, so I traveled abroad to Sweden in the spring, or in the winter of '06. So I was actually over there whenever, this award ceremony took place. I actually didn't get to see the award ceremony. I was on a trip or whatever. So I heard about Crash winning the next day. I didn't actually watch the show. And I was real excited because that was my pick. I'd actually talked about it on a student television show, why that was my pick. So yeah, I had a lot of connection with this year. And I remember specifically we had so I was with a bunch of international students watching this movie at this community, the student community center thing. And I remember whenever Crash came out on DVD, everyone was excited to come and see that finally, because it had won the Oscar. I'm not sure if we did this before or after the Oscars, but anyways, it was very popular. A lot of people came to see it, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. But there was several Americans that were with me there that just had some issues with it, which I really didn't get at the time. And I kind of understand a little bit more now. So, but yeah, I definitely, and looking back at it in retrospect now, I mean, Brokeback Mountain was that big, gay cinema. I mean, you hear queer cinema is actually a more common term I've heard. I'm not really sure where to go with this. I don't want to, rub anyone. I'm a movie lover. I watch all kinds of movies. So I'm just going to call it gay cinema. But I mean, I think it's come a long, long way since Brokeback Mountain. But I think Brokeback Mountain definitely slammed the door open for movies like, Call Me by Your Name, Moonlight, Blue's the Warmest Color, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, to really become more mainstream. And it really started with Brokeback. So it definitely has its historical significance there.
Yeah, and I've only seen of those ones you named Blue, but we talked about before when we were on our the movie with Rachel Weisz in it, which is escaping Disobedience.
Right.
How we I mean, that's another one. But we talked about Blue and how we think both just think it's a masterpiece of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting because Disobedience, I remember having a very cold feeling. You feel the social relevance of that being homosexuality being a taboo in that movie, but it's so cold that it disconnects you from the actual people involved. Where maybe to an extent that comes into play with the Brokeback Mountain, but we'll get there.
I mean, yeah. Also, for that's a movie that's set in the '60s through the '80s, and then out west, and they're kind of around, especially in the '60s, they're all around men, manly men. And it's very taboo. It's just such a different time. There's portraying something in a different era, and it's just that's a lot to kind of encompass in that movie.
It's interesting that Ang Lee directed it, being an Asian director, Taiwanese, I think, having directed it. So yeah, you want to hit this plot synopsis so we can go full bore on Brokeback?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he was the first non-Caucasian to win Best Director. I'm pretty sure, which is crazy. So, So it's a story of a forbidden and secretive relationship between two cowboys and their lives over the years, which is about 20 years, give or take. So,
so that was one of the aspects that I really didn't, because I hadn't seen it since the theater. So it being this like evolution of time really kind of hit me this time. Like you're watching the cars that they have, and they're very old timey cars, and like there's the scene where they're in the drive-in movie theater and they're actually watching a black and white movie. So you really get a sense of how old it is. I'm not sure if there was a time jump at one point. You remember the scene where they're like, I think they're at Thanksgiving, and like one of the families is cutting a turkey with a knife, and then it switches over and it shows a turkey being cut with an electric knife. I don't know if that was a time jump to show like a time jump, but I thought it was an interesting transition.
Yeah, well, because they're at Jack Twist and Lorene's family, but I mean, remember they're the kind of well-to-do family, and they've got the big the big floor model TV.
But Jack Twist actually had the knife, and when it cut over, it was Ennis's dinner that had the electric one.
Yes, and then they're the well-to-do family, but they didn't have the knife. But I don't know if that was. I don't think that was a time jump. It was just that they, for whatever reason, they would rather spend their money on something like the floor model television, because that was like the late 70s. Watching like the Packers. I'm assuming actually probably the Cowboys, because they live in Texas, but it definitely looked like Green Bay on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
So. But yeah, then they went over to where it was Ennis was definitely invited over to Alma and Monroe. Like he was visiting because it was after they had split, and they were using that electric knife kind of deal. But no, that was actually one of my probably my biggest problem with this movie was that there were time jumps with nothing to tell you that there was time jumps, and they spent the first part of the movie, they give you a timestamp on the screen that tells you that it's 1963, and then every time anything else is, you have to look at the age of the children and kind of go, okay, they're a few years older, or you have to look at the surroundings around you. And obviously, they're trying to give you to use context clues, and obviously I'm not stupid. I can tell that the IROC Camaro at the end, and that Kate Mara is 19, so all right, so I have to do 1963, 1964, okay, so 1983, okay, but if you give me a timestamp at the frickin' beginning, and you're not going to give me, put a calendar in the back, do something, give me something, because there was another scene, the scene right after the with the carving knife, and he gets knocked out. He gets in a fight, gets knocked out, and they cut. In the next scene, they're riding horses, and it's like there was no transition. So there were some bad transitions and just the time jumps. Those were my main things. But we can
let's reel it back and get back to the beginning. Man, the beginning of this movie is pretty spectacular. I mean, Ang Lee, we know he can shoot some spectacular stuff, and like these shots, I'm not sure if it was the actual Wyoming mountains. That's where the story takes place, but whatever mountains those are, they looked beautiful. And
sure.
And seeing these guys come out, these two cowboys come together and herd these sheep. I don't know what it is about a good Western where there's, a cattle drive or whatever. It's pretty spectacular cinema. Some really good cattle drives are in that Red River movie with John Wayne. But in terms of a modern one, this one had sheep. Some great sights.
Oh yeah, just the shots of Brokeback and those were really good. Like the cinematography of all the different nature stuff throughout the entire movie.
Definitely captured the wide open spaces.
Yeah, the lakes and everything were so really good.
Very simplistic score. I just recall like kind of a strumming of an acoustic guitar, very kind of mournful kind of sound to it. One thing that surprised me a lot this time was how powerful the performances from Michelle Williams as Ennis's first or only wife, and then Anne Hathaway's in it there. She's not as prominent, but yeah, I thought their connections with the women actually stood out a lot more to me this time.
And that's a thing I always heard, like, because I guess a lot of people assumed I never watched it because I was just like, oh, it's a gay movie, I don't want to see it, which was never the case. It was just I didn't see it, and then just whatever reason I never saw it, and everyone was like, well, there's more sex, hetero sex than gay sex, and it's Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams, blah blah blah. Like, Anne Hathaway is a phenomenal actress. Michelle Williams as well. Like, I guess so many people who like shortchange Michelle Williams because she's the chick from Dawson's Creek, and it's like, dude, she's more than the chick from Dawson's Creek. And like, they were both great in this movie. And when we start going through the rest of the movie, there is a specific scene with Anne Hathaway where it's like, if you don't know that she's a good actress, like, this is the scene that tells you she's a good actress. But we'll get to that later. But like,
I'm just
they were
curious
both
to see what that is.
They are both so phenomenal to go with Jake and Heath. Like, they everybody. This is a movie besides the story, and what we said with Aang's cinematography. Like, these four actors just powerhoused this movie for sure.
Yeah, great acting, very beautiful. So yeah, we got Ennis Del Mar. He's Heath Ledger's character. Jack Twist, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And so yeah, they go to this rancher in Wyoming, played by Randy Quaid, which I've seen a lot of incidental Randy Quaid movies recently. Of course, he's in Vacation, which I knew about, but he's actually in Days of Thunder, which I didn't realize, and then he's in this movie, which I didn't realize, and he was also in The Last Detail, which I watched a few weeks ago. So I've been seeing a lot of Randy Quaid all of a sudden, and so it was funny to see him pop right back up here. But yeah, he has a plan for his sheep. He wants his cowboys to set up a base camp and then have one of them hike up the mountain each night to kind of babysit the sheep and make sure the wolves don't eat them up, instead of both of them being down in base camp. But then I think he probably cuts the job a little short because he sees that the guys are starting to slack off a little bit.
Yeah. Because he had, also there was like the big storm, but I think that was just his precursor because he had, came up the mountain to deliver that news to Jack Twist about his uncle having pneumonia. But at that point, the relationship had started budding some, and I guess there was another issue.
They're definitely playing plenty of grab ass and not being discreet about it. I guess, the mindset was they're out in the middle of nowhere, so they don't have to be discreet. But these guys definitely get caught in the act a few more times, and you're like, what are you doing that right now for?
Yeah. Obviously you're not expecting your boss who sent you into the mountains to come up to the mountains when you're, like, we're in the mountains for X amount of months, I guess, June, July, August, to show up in, whatever. So, but that very first scene, the very first time they hook up, like,
I think they got drunk, right? And then, and Ennis just decides not to go up the mountain because he's drunk.
Yeah, he's too drunk, like, and like, he can't make it, and he's like, I'm gonna sleep outside, and Jack's like, dude, you're gonna freeze to death when this fire goes out. And so it's later in the night, and he's like, yo, get in the tent. And so it's like, all right, he's gonna go in the tent so he doesn't die. And then part of the way through the night, like, he turns over and like he grabs his hand, and then all of a sudden it goes from we're spooning to keep warm to we're making out, and then it's whoa.
They had a very interesting form of sexuality in this movie. Very, very aggressive.
It was very aggressive, and like I didn't
almost like rams, like kind of like butting into each other, of kind of how they were going at it.
And then like I don't know, maybe it's because I don't understand, because that's not my nature,
good point.
But or maybe there was some subtlety that I missed, but everything that I saw was just like, hey, two dudes who were friends, or just two dudes who were co-workers that were just working together on this mountain, and then all of a sudden they banged one out, which, okay, sure, whatever, and then the next day, and this is like, hey, I'm not queer, I'm gonna marry Alma, and Jack's like, well, it's our business, whatever, and then they just kind of, then after that it was a lot more of a relationship kind of, or I guess a fling, whatever you want to call it, kind of deal. So, but so
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you thought this might be their first time because, yeah, it makes me wonder. What isn't it's Jack kind of like grabs Ennis's hand to put around him, and then they start kind of getting up in each other's business, and then Jack wants Ennis to take him. I mean, my impression from the whole I'm not queer line is that this might have been at least Ennis's first time. Surely it couldn't have been Jack's first time if he was ready to be taken like that.
I mean, I'm not really sure. It's hard to say. I mean, you base off of some of the things where you get to later in the movie. It definitely seems like it wasn't Jack's first time, but maybe it wasn't Ennis's either. Maybe because I mean, he definitely spits to use as lube, and that's.
Well, I think you do that, but I mean, that's a straight move too. So.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
I don't want to get too pornographic on this deal, but.
well, yeah, but I mean, not really something. Anyway,
yeah.
I don't know. It's not. It wasn't something that I thought about in the moment of watching it. It was more of this has escalated. This went from 0 to 100 real quick. Was what more of what I was thinking during that particular scene.
And I think the first time I watched it, maybe I didn't quite believe it because it was 0 to 100 like that. To where now, maybe thinking about it being a little bit older, maybe these guys were more experienced than what I originally. And it's a very subtle. It doesn't let you know at all what their experience level was. So
I mean, yeah, not at all. I would think I would think that that Mr. Twist would be the more experienced probably. But I guess in the longer scheme of things, it really doesn't matter.
What I think is really interesting is how they do have these different personality types, where Ennis is definitely an introvert, which kind of makes his harder. I mean, I guess Heath Ledger has a fantastic performance in this, but he's so introverted and mumbles so much that it's hard to really warm up to his character. Whereas in he definitely deserved that Joker Best Picture win post mortis, because he's all up in your face being the Joker. So this is definitely a much different performance. I was kind of noticing towards the end. Did you? I guess they kind of try to make up Ennis's face to make him look a little older, and I was kind of noticing chunks of makeup on his cheek, which I'm not sure if that was meant to be like skin, where his his skin was worn. Any thoughts on that one?
I mean, it could have been just, you can think about it, probably the way they did the makeup in, 2005, we weren't really going to have HD, and now we're watching in HD
true.
and 4K, and things look a lot different. I mean, I did notice that there was supposed to be wearing around his eyes as he got older, and I think it was just supposed to be aging, but I mean, I just thought it was, this is, the way they wanted him to show his age and stuff, and it was supposed to be a way to, instead of giving us a time stamp to say, oh, we went from 1963 to 1973, whatever.
And then on the other side, you have Jack Twist, who he's much more of a character. I mean, he wants to be a rodeo guy. He doesn't look like he ages at all throughout the whole movie. I think other than getting the big mustache, right?
They show him the mustache, and you could they both show grain in the hair and that kind of stuff. But he also, his life physically isn't as hard because he's off selling tractor equipment for Lorene's father, and whereas Enos is working on ranches and that kind of stuff, and for a while he was laying asphalt and that kind of stuff, and his life was on the outside a lot easier. And I don't know if you read my review, his life on the outside was a lot easier than Enos's. As Enos's was, he's got the wife and the 2 kids, and they're struggling financially, and they were fighting, and he hated it, even though he obviously, him and Jack Twist had their love story, but both of these guys also had their love stories with their wife, at least to some degree. He at least in some way loved Alma. He definitely loved his kids, and but that life was not for him. That life with the two, he wanted to ranch, and that's why they lived in the ranch. And then she convinced him to, move to town where he didn't want to be, and he did not like it. He did not enjoy it, and he was miserable. And then on the other side of that, you have Jack Twist, and very juxtaposed lifestyle where I don't want to say he's flamboyant, but he's definitely more
charismatic,
very charismatic, very extroverted, very charming even.
Really appreciated the scene where he has kind of this dickhead father-in-law who, going back to that pretty pivotal scene with the Thanksgiving dinner where he's insisting that the grandson can watch the football, but Jack's like he needs to listen to his mother and eat his dinner first, and so that standoff scene was pretty great.
Yeah, where he finally, I think that was right after a big, him and Ennis had a standoff or something like this previous scene or something, and he was like, I could be wrong. I mean, some of the stuff jumps around, but yeah, I feel like that was him, I'm standing up for what I want kind of deal. The first scene between him and Lorene, that first whole scene where he picks up her hat after it falls off, and she winks at him. And then they're in the honky tonk, and she's like, "What are you waiting for? A mating call?" That whole thing. They had chemistry. That was really good. Who doesn't want a mating call with Anne Hathaway? Let's be real.
That was similar to the girl that comes on to Ennis later, and she throws her feet up into his laps I want a foot massage, and he's like, "Oh, okay." Very country movie.
Linda Cardellini, Hopper's in this movie, from Dennis Hopper, not Dennis Hopper, but Hooper from Stranger Things, and Anna Faris. They're the other couple. We'll get into, I guess, in a bit when talking about some of the other stuff that Jack Twist gets into. But
speaking of that other couple, do you think he was that guy was coming on to Ennis? It kind of seemed like. I wasn't sure if he was trying to buddy up or not.
No, he was coming on to him.
Oh, weird.
And
okay.
I wasn't 100% sure. I was 99.9% sure. But the scene where at the very end when Enos goes to visit Jack's parents, confirms that.
How so?
He always talked about how you two were going to come back and save this ranch, and then last year he said him and this guy he was friends with were going to come back and do it. It was very, very much implied that it was that.
Oh, okay. I'm getting these mixed up. Yeah, so Jack's the one who's talking to the guy who I wasn't sure about. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
but I thought.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
We don't see a whole lot of emotion from Ennis, but one of the times we do is when Jack first leaves him, and he kind of has an emotional not emotional breakdown, but he gets very emotional, and he goes behind, a wall and starts crying, and some guy's looking at him. He's just like, go away, leave me alone.
Definitely would have broken his hand punching that concrete wall.
Yeah. So we don't see that a whole lot. Watching this movie a little older, I definitely appreciate more of the messiness in their relationship, the more the inconsistency in what they do, what they want, which makes it feel more realistic, and the fact that this is a taboo they're dealing with in the West, with this lifestyle that they're keeping hidden, which, obviously you got to say it. I mean, it was such an unfortunate thing for people that, are gay and aren't able to express themselves or, be who they want to be. It's tough for straight people too, but yeah, life's a confusing thing, especially when it comes to love, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, making it messy. Of course, it's real nice when you watch a movie and the love story gets tied up with a little bow at the end, and your heart can pitter patter and all of that stuff, and that's real nice. But that's not. That's not what it is.
Shoot, none of these gay movies ever end like that. It's always bad at the end.
Yeah, they give you a little bit more realistic than the fairy tale ending, but that's because like you said, love is messy. You're lucky. You've been with the same person since I've known you. But you've had to work at it, and it's probably never been easy, and it's been hard. And some of us are, we still haven't found that person. We've thought we found that person multiple times, and it's never worked out. And
at the same time, I mean, you always think, should I have done something a little differently too? I mean, it's confusing,
Yeah, and luckily, for us, us being you and I, we are not homosexuals, so we never had to like hide our love for somebody.
Right, and have to deal with that, how that reflects on you, your family, your friends. Yeah, so my heart goes out to people that have to deal with that.
Yeah, or think that their family will disown them, or all of that stuff, because even now that shit happens and it's ridiculous. So
I think there's been a few movies out lately that talk about gay reversal therapy and stuff. I haven't seen any of those yet, but I can only imagine that's some heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah, and it's actually ridiculous. Like I have a friend of mine who, the whole time I've known him for a couple of years now. Like he's been very, very openly out that he's gay, that he has a fiance, and he just came out to his family not that long ago. And it was like, wow, that you've been out to like all your friends, and he just came out to his parents, and it's like, that's crazy. That you have to feel that you have to like hide a part of yourself for like acceptance and that kind of stuff. But it goes to not just, it goes deep on so many levels. But
and I think this movie very tastefully handles that as a primary theme, obviously. And it's at its most brutal form. We hear Innes telling us about how his dad told him this story about these two guys that lived together, and then one day, like, one of the guys got strung up by his junk and dragged until it ripped off. And I think they show us a picture of that. And then they kind of fib to us, saying that Jack died because he was changing a tire, but in fact apparently the wrong people found out his lifestyle choice, and they beat him to death on the side of the road. For some, I had totally forgotten that part. Like whenever we see him go down to Mexico, I would thought for sure he was going to end up with like AIDS or something, but no, it turns into a hate crime. So.
Yep, and that's actually the scene that I was talking about earlier. So that whole scene where Innes. By the way, I was not expecting Jake Gyllenhaal to die. Like I didn't know exactly how that was going to end, but I definitely was not expecting that. Yeah. So Innes call. He gets the thing deceased, and so he calls Lorene, who's Anne Hathaway. So this is the first time in the whole movie, and the only time in the movie in which Anne Hathaway and Innes
talk.
Yeah, they talk. It's the only time they interact. So you get Joker and Catwoman. It's the only time they interact. And her performance in there. So to kind of put some levity on that. So we were talking about how there was this other couple, and Jack says that he's running off to screw Anna Faris's character, which you see him. They share a dance where they meet at some mixer, some event. And then, they're sitting outside, and he's talking to the other
community dance or something.
Yeah, and he's talking to the other guy, and he's like, "Yo, I can go borrow so-and-so's cabin, and we can go out there, and we can kind of be alone, like wink, wink, wink." Yeah. And they kind of tell you later that, and heavily imply that they were also together. And he was like, "Yeah, every time I'm running off, I'm scared Lorene's gonna, kill me," kind of thing. And her performance with just the way she was talking and everything, was like. So, did she find out that he was gay? Did she find out he was sleeping with the chick? Did she find out he was sleeping with the chick, the other guy, and Innes? Like, did he finally come clean? Like, did she find out all of this and set this up? Because they were well-to-do. She would have the money, and he even said we could do our marriage over the phone. Like, that basically it was just, at that point, it was a marriage. Like, it wasn't like a loving marriage. So, like, would she have done that to prevent that coming out, to prevent shame to her well-to-do family there in Texas? Because obviously, even in the 80s, like in Texas, that would be shame. And just the whole way that whole scene played out, because Innes is like, how did it happen? And she's just flat and matter-of-factly, and then she just there's never emotion, like sad emotion, and just It's like, did she? And just that whole scene, like, that's one of my favorite scenes in like the whole movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was just.
And
the way,
I wonder if it actually came out as like a news story, and she knew the whole truth, but maybe like she didn't think he would be able to handle that, and so she sugarcoated it for him.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, there's all so many ways to take it. Because and also the way they shot it, as she's telling it, they're showing you what really happened. So.
And back then, it might not have been a hate crime like that. Might not have been reported. So
I mean, yeah. Who knows? So, especially not in Texas. Like, so.
Got to get to the most iconic scene is whenever they're kind of having their spat, where they've spent this trip together, and what is it? Ennis tells him that he's not going to be able to come in a few months. It's going to be a few months more, and Jack gets real upset, and they have that line, "I can't quit you. All we have is Brokeback Mountain." I think my favorite part of this scene is that we do see their personality types come out once again, where Ennis is this much more reserved guy that doesn't necessarily need this sensuality to keep him going. He's much more cagey and reserved, where Jack, this is very much something he needs. I deal with that one I'll leave it at the fact that I deal with that some in my own relationship. So that, people have different desires, and that can be difficult whenever, they don't line up.
Yeah, and that scene was very powerful and emotional because, he's talking about, he can't get off work, and he had to trade August to be here now. So it's like, I had to pick one. I picked this one, and then I can be there then. And why isn't this enough? And he's like, well, a handful of times since, in the last 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Why can't we just live together? We could have been together, et cetera, et cetera. And this is, Jack Twist talking. And then, I'm geared up for, how they're going to resolve, move past this, the next time that they're together. And then they're not. The next time he's dead. So now one of the things that's, we haven't touched on a ton is Ennis's relationship with his children.
Oh yeah.
Because
mostly the one definitely connects with them.
Yeah, which is Kate at 19 at the end is played by Kate Mara. And like at one point she comes out with him and his girlfriend, who ends up I guess like he never actually dumps her. He just kind of like stops responding to her, and but at the end she ends up like she's getting married and wants him to come, and he's like, yeah, I'll not go out on the roping or the ranching or whatever. The roundup, I think, is actually
at first she's just like, no, I got work, and then he comes to his senses a few moments later, and then they share a drink together, which is a very tender moment.
Yeah, and then the end, and then the end is, he's looking at, which I guess we haven't really talked about this. Is the two interwound shirts from the very first time at Brokeback, where they'd gotten in a fight and there was blood on both of them, and like Jack had kept them, which harkens back because he's like, man, I can't believe I left my shirt up there, and Jack had kept both their shirts and like put them inside of each other.
Okay. And he discovers that in kind of this back compartment to his Jack's old room's closet. And that's the other real big emotional scene from Ennis. And did you have any thoughts on the fact that Jack's parents didn't want him to spread the ashes up there on the mountain?
Well, definitely, like, they were very emotional, and, they had a family plot, and, people having family plots, when they have a family plot, is a big deal.
Yeah.
But, also you could probably get the sense that, they probably were, like, not, if that happened and people found out, then, they probably would find out that their son was gay, and that would be a big shame to their family kind of deal. And at least if he's buried at the family plot, they could keep the story of, what Anne Hathaway's character had said.
It's interesting that you bring the the reputation of a family into it a lot, where we really don't get any hints of that at all. But I mean, you can easily insinuate that, that would be a factor. I mean, regardless of how poor they are, because they definitely live in a very aged house.
Yeah, and you would think that, because remember, Jack did not have very fond feelings of his father, because he talked about how his father was this great radio guy, but treated him like complete and utter trash. But people, this is the reputation of our family, of our good name. We're not going to let this be tarnished, kind of deal. And that was kind of where I took it was, I don't want anybody to know that my son was gay, and it probably would be said with much harsher words, kind of deal. But the mother obviously was very, you can take this, you can take these shirts and, come back and see us, kind of thing. And so maybe that wasn't it, or, maybe that was just being polite, you're polite to guest kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe there's something else there that I'm missing. Maybe it was just, it's the plot, we have this plot and you're supposed to be buried in this plot, and that was definitely a thing. You have a plot and you're buried in that family plot kind of deal.
Yeah, he's definitely standing his ground. Yeah, they're hard to read. The mother seems more maybe understanding, but I mean they're both very friendly to him. So yeah, there's a lot of subtext here, it's an interesting wrinkle to deal with, especially when you're talking about was this the best movie that year? I mean, like I said before, this was definitely one of the big mainstream gay movies to break out, and I can see the cultural significance and why people would be upset that it wasn't honored for that, especially with Ang Lee putting such a tender touch on it.
To that end, I do remember, because you got to remember, so we were like 20, and okay. You when this movie came out, or 1920, somewhere in that age, and we live in the South. Yeah. So I definitely remember a lot of people going, "Oh, well, this is just a movie to make gay people happy. Why they gotta gay it up? Why they gotta, appease the gay people,
I wasn't able to see it in a Regal theater down here. I had to go up to the Art House Theater in Charlotte to check it out. So it wasn't widespread.
Yeah, or or all sorts of things of that nature. You just could imagine, and of course, it was definitely not. Even though the things I just said weren't nice, they were not said that nicely. There were definitely much more colorful language.
Sure.
Yeah. And yeah, it was ridiculous, and I can't believe that even then and even now that there are people who would have that kind of stuff to say. It's very unfortunate.
I mean, to speak a little personally on this topic, I remember in high school, being around people, and obviously those gay people were looked down upon, especially by the kind of the group of people I was with. I mean, it was you'd hear all these derogatory terms, but I've come to find out that it's kind of hard to hate your neighbor, hate your friend. And when I marched drum corps, I met a lot of homosexual men and women, and they were fantastic people, some of the most talented people I ever met. And it really changed my heart in a way to where once you know somebody, it's a lot hard. I mean, you can hate a concept, but whenever you put a name or a person to that concept that you love and appreciate, it's a whole different ballgame. And so whenever you see shows like Modern Family come out, and straight fathers, brothers, sisters, whatever, watching these people that you fall in love with, it changes the culture, I think. And so from that period of time back then to now, I think probably the hatred towards these kind of folks has probably changed quite a bit. I mean, I remember specifically my dad was a huge fan of True Blood, and there was a very, very flamboyant character on that show, but he thought he was terrific. And I definitely saw a change in my dad from starting that show to the end of that show. So a little perspective to it.
Yeah, I mean, also considering that the school that we went to, it was like 75% female and 25% male, and a huge population of that 25% male were homosexual, and a pretty big part of that female it's like it's a modern college, but I mean there was a huge like if you were a straight male at that school, you could have your pick at the women because there were so many gay men that went there. Like, and it was just a thing. And like I live in a much smaller town than you do, and there were probably definitely gay kids, both male and female, that went to my high school. I don't remember them, or it being a thing. I'm sure it was. I was probably oblivious, didn't really care. But you get to Winthrop, basically the South Carolina suburb of Charlotte, and it's everywhere. Like, and no one, there were people just they weren't hiding it. They didn't feel the need to hide it. And it was much different. And then
Sure.
It's like, wow, okay. And it was just a thing. Like, why? I never understood why who somebody loved or wanted to sleep with was my concern or my business, or like why it should affect me. Like, who that person goes home with doesn't affect me, so why should I care? Like, at all. And so,
and the stereotype's always been where a straight person's scared of a homosexual person because they think they're gonna go after them, and that's just the nuttiest thing. I mean, I don't know how that got that idea ever got implanted in culture, but it's a stupid
like,
one.
Most of the time, like most like if they hit on you, like, okay, cool, no thank you, and they can go about their life. Or how do you think women feel every day when like guys are just like, oh my god, I like, low, let's go, and they have to repeatedly like beat men off with sticks. It's like, it's all right, well, now we know what it feels like if a gay man is hitting on us over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Like, it's just silly to think that, or I've seen the ones where, what if a gay man hits on me, does that make me gay? No, it doesn't. You just say no, thank you, and continue about your freaking life.
Yeah, but so true. All right, so I think you want to give ratings to it now, or you want to wait till we get into our next topic? I know. What do you think?
It's definitely really high up there. I'm gonna say it's a 4.5.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Just because of like the timing sequences, and then the ending, just because it kind of was like that he looked at that picture and that shirt, and it just kind of ended, and I was like, okay. But a 4.5. If someone gave it a 5, I would not fault them for that. I thought it was like a real powerhouse, great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I followed about in the same line with you there. All right, we're going to take a short break. We've been going for quite a while, but man, we got another controversial movie to talk about, because these two controversial movies went head to head, and we'll look into some of their stylistic differences, and hey, who do we think should have been the winner that year? So we'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast, and we are talking about the big Oscar collision from, was it 2006, right?
It was at 2006 Oscars, yes.
2005 movies.
Well, Crash came out at the end of 2004, and then...
Oh, wow.
But it came out too late to hit the 2005 Oscars. And then Brokeback came out in 2005 and then made the 2006. So, yes, it's kind of weird, but yeah.
All right, so Crash is a large cast movie all about racial conflict that results as a part of, America, specifically LA, in this movie being a melting pot. So I might have mentioned earlier in the podcast, this was one I was a little hesitant to dust off because I've always been a proponent of Crash, and so many other cinephiles just think this movie is awful. And watching it back, I see some more faults in it now than what I did whenever I really enjoyed it the first go around. But I also listened to a YouTuber who was going on and on about how they just hated this every inch of this movie, and it kind of helped put in perspective of what I think some people are missing about it. So you wanna so how'd your experience of this one go?
I absolutely loved it. I hadn't seen it in 15, 14, 16, a lot of years since in the theater. So probably, like, it came out at the end of '04. I probably saw it at like the beginning of '05, something like that. I absolutely loved it. Like I thought that it probably showed a lot of things that of how race and hatred and preconceived notions shape interactions between people every day, and how some of those things are, especially right now, are ridiculously prominent in this country. You know, like how cops can treat certain races and get away with it, and how racism just runs rampant in our police force. But, you know, you're talking about how, like talking about it being a hyper reality where, like, some actions are exaggerated to make points. Well, I mean, that kind of makes sense. They're movies. So, I mean, that probably happens to a certain degree, you know, for moviness. So, like, but yeah, no, I loved it. I don't, maybe you'll make these points and we can talk about it, but, like, I personally don't see the hate for this movie.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people who complain about this film say it's not realistic, and like you had just mentioned just a second ago, I don't think it's necessarily supposed to be realistic, because it's a hyper reality. It's exaggerating these feelings that people in our culture do have, and by the name Crash, it's colliding these kinds of people together and basically seeing what comes of it. And when you're in the most stressful situation manageable, you're going to either be at your worst or at your best. And I think this movie is very, very good at displaying that. It rips off a Band-Aid, and it's really ugly under that Band-Aid, but there's some truth to it. I mean, it's very exaggerated. I mean, people probably wouldn't say a bunch of racist banter while, you know, a person of another race is changing their door lock. That probably wouldn't happen, but that doesn't mean that person doesn't think that. And it's very provocative to see it thrown in your face. And it's not subtle about it. It's not Brokeback Mountain subtle. It's very much in your face. It's very much more emotional. And I think there's something to be appreciated about that.
But, I mean, to be fair,
okay,
if you had just been robbed by a minority, and a different minority is in your house, and you're an affluent person, especially an affluent white person,
right,
and
district attorney or something,
the wife of the district attorney, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that would happen. To think that they would, I mean, because they're scared, they're upset, and maybe they don't actually have actual hatred in their heart. It's fear, because now they've been robbed, and especially targeted. In LA, there's they're maybe the white. I don't know, but I know in LA it's such a melting pot. There's so many cultures, but you know, she's like, oh, there's all these tattoos. And you know, you even see Brendan Fraser's like, nah, those aren't gang tattoos. And she's like, whatever, just do it. She doesn't feel safe. And that's why she starts saying all of these, you know, these things that, you know, these people she's probably been talking to on the phone or whatever, these other, you know, upper middle class, lower upper class, whatever, people she talks to probably say all the time. It doesn't make it right, obviously, but, you know, that's probably where it comes from. It's a place of fear. You know, you and I probably wouldn't say anything like that, of course, but that's you know, that's kind of where, in that specific scene, where I took that from, was it's definitely a place of fear, maybe even a little bit of anger, you know, because, you know, she just got friggin' jacked at gunpoint,
And I mean, you got the affirmative action scene, and I hope to God no one would ever get in somebody's face and say something like that. But I'm surely you've been a part of a conversation where somebody's complained that that's occurred. I mean, on any job form you filled out now, it always asks, what your race is, and you have to think in the back of your mind that they are filtering this by, representation, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I always kind of got a weird feeling in my gut whenever I was applying for colleges, and I know that kind of stuff was going on, and you yourself want to succeed. And then whenever sometimes you falter, I mean, was it all your fault? Probably was, but at the same time, you do have these kind of measures in place. And, did you fall on the wrong side of that? I mean, I would hopefully not think that someone would call me a racist for considering the fact that that's a reality. But, I mean, it's something that crosses everyone's mind, I would think, at some point. Okay. So one of the most, I'll rewind a little bit. Okay. So there's the scene where the two black guys, they leave a restaurant and they start talking about getting profiled, which, I mean, is totally understandable. They crack the joke about black people don't tip, a stereotype, true or not. I mean, I don't want to dig myself any holes on stereotypes, but the reason, they come up is because they've been seen before. And I mean, not to say, I mean, anybody could be a shitty tipper. So there you go, moving on. But yeah, so they do all this rhetoric and then they turn around and they rob somebody. I think this movie perfectly shows that anybody is capable of anything. You could be the most well-meaning person that's never done a racist thing in your life, and you could somehow find yourself in a way that you're profiling somebody in some form or fashion. Or you could be a very smart person in another way and ended up in a situation where you're pointing a gun for some reason or not. These things, I mean, it's not impossible. Is it realistic to think that this happens every day? No, but I think they're possibilities. And Crash, very interestingly, makes us think about them, which, again, I mean, it's a much more simplistic theme going on here, but one that I think more people connect with. What you got? Moving.
I completely agree. Like, obviously, these are not things that would happen necessarily on a day-to-day, but these are things. And like, yes, it's very funny, like, that you have Ludacris and the other guy, his friend, that are like they're going through all these black stereotypes, and Ludacris's character he's ludicrous, haha, and the amount of like, oh, you can't ride the bus, the huge windows are there to like humiliate the poor black men that have to ride them, and despite the fact that like everybody in big cities usually ride in mass transits. And he just comes up with all these different things where you can't do these because everything's to like oppress people, and he always has all these different things, and like you said about being trashy tippers, or they didn't offer us any coffee, and he's like, but we
didn't order any coffee. Yeah.
You don't like coffee, and I didn't order it, and blah blah blah, and she's like, oh, and then they go to start before they attack Sandra Bullock and Brendan Fraser. Oh, as soon as she saw us, she got cold and bundled up, and it's like, well, it could be because we got guns, and it's like, well, there you fell into that stereotype, and it's like, it's the irony there. It's definitely intentional, obviously, and not lost on anybody, in that particular scene. But like you said, they put people in these situations crashing into one another, as Don Cheadle said in the opening credit.
Yeah. Not subtle, but real.
Roll credits. They drop the name in the opening credits. You can just opening credits, end credits, roll. There you go. And then you get to where Matt Dillon is on the phone with Shaniqua, doing some HOA stuff for his father, and that really, he's on the phone, and that rolls into they're looking for a navigator, and you think it's the navigator, and it turns out to be this different navigator. And Ryan Philippe's like, hey man, this isn't even the right car. And he's like, well, they're doing something. And
yeah, I definitely found Terrence Howard's character to be one of the most interesting characters in this movie. So he gets pulled over by the police, and he's doing the best he can to not escalate the situation. But then his drunk wife, is speaking her mind and trying to escalate it for him, and demasculates him for it, which is just heart-wrenching. The fact that here's this guy that, in a way, he's definitely being profiled here, but he's doing his best not to escalate the situation, and he's being punished for it, which is heartbreaking. And then we find out he's a successful director on a show, and a white guy or like a white producer comes up to him and say, we should really do that scene again, but let's have the black people be more black in it. Escalating that caricature.
You're the person that would know. You're the expert on this, and it's like, really?
Oh that was. And then I liked how his character built up to this point to where he really couldn't stand it anymore. He actually gets held up himself by the two guys, and then he just has a breakdown, which totally made sense for the fact that he'd been questioned and trying to do the right thing, but just things are not going right for him, and it escalates to that point. Now, so Ryan Philippe, his turn is a little. We'll get there in just a second. Okay. So there's the two big emotional moments in this movie. And I think my biggest problem with Crash is, I think in retrospect, I think they're a little ham-fisted. You have the scene, we haven't even gotten to the fact that so there's this guy he's a Persian, and so he goes to buy a gun to protect his shop. And so he's buying it from, this, typical, white arms dealer guy, or not arms dealer, he's a gun shop guy. And then they start, speaking in, their Persian language, and he gets very freaked out about this, and then doesn't want to sell him the gun. I mean, there's so much stereotyping and racial elements to this. It's so hard. It's like trying to tiptoe around these things. But okay, so 9/11 obviously happened, several years before this film, and so that's what it's hinting at. It's that white people are freaked out by Middle Easterners, so that's what that's showing there. And he's hesitant about buying a gun, even though that they've already purchased it. And then he ends up having a dispute with the locksmith, who we saw from Sandra Bullock's house, and he's just like, it's not your lock, not the lock it's the problem, it's the door. And then they aren't able to communicate, and eventually, so this Persian guy, the shop owner, finds himself in a really, really bad place. And so what he does is he's going to go to the locksmith, and he's going to go put a bullet in him, because he's so frustrated that the insurance is not going to help him out with his shop as a result of this whole lock ordeal. And so one of the big epic moments of the film is when this gun goes off, and gosh, to touch on one moment, it seems like I'm having to do all this backtracking in order to actually line it up properly, because you have a very what's the name of the guy who plays the lock? Smith.
I can't remember his name, but he's in the Ant-Man movies and Marvel movies, and he's the friend, and he talks real fast, and he's funny, and he's like, hey, this is what happened. And you've seen him in all the memes where it's like, hey,
Michael
Pena.
Pena.
2020. Yeah,
Michael
so,
Pena. Okay,
yeah.
So Michael Pena has a very, very enduring scene where, I guess that he kind of lives in a so-so neighborhood with him and his daughter, and he always wants her to be protected. Anyway, so there's this real enduring scene where he tells her about, basically he says, I'll always protect you, and what he does to do that is he gives her this cloak, this pretend cloak that wraps it around her, and he kind of makes it kind of a fairy tale kind of thing. And so she sees her daddy.
Impenetrable. it can't be penetrated.
Right, not the cloak of invisibility from Harry Potter. Bulletproof imaginary cloak. All right, so she sees her daddy being confronted by this guy with a gun, and she goes to run to give him it, and then the gun goes off, and we think that the girl's been shot. And instantly, I start welling up like crazy because, I mean, it's very emotionally manipulated to do that. And then magically, it didn't happen. And it's a very emotional moment, but I see how it's a little forced. Did you feel that at all?
I mean, when you think back to the scene where he's buying the gun, he leaves and the daughter finishes negotiating because she can speak much better English. Obviously, It looks like she's lived here,
but she doesn't know a thing about bullets, right? That's key.
I don't think so. I think it seems like when she makes that decision, she's like, just give me the ones in the red. Right. It seems like she intentionally did that. Like that's kind of how it's how I took it. Because like
which the red are blanks.
The reds are blanks, and like it feels like she's like, give me whichever ones will work, and the dude's just being a dick. And then because she doesn't want her father to have the gun, she's like, I want you to give me the money back, and he puts the gun down, and like I guess you can kind of see the bullets, so maybe she can see that it says blanks. Like obviously it's angled where we can't because we got to have that surprise later. I think I took it that she put blanks on purpose to protect her father so he didn't shoot somebody. But that's just how I interpret it.
I kind of came away with it saying that she didn't know one bullet from another, and a bullet is a bullet is a bullet, and so she picked that one. So that's kind of how I took it. So it's kind of neat that there is some interpretation there. I thought it was a little knowing all along that there were blanks. Maybe the fact I subconsciously knew since I'd seen this movie before, but whenever they actually show the box and it says blanks real big on the side, I was just like, you didn't really have to show that to us in order for us to know. That was the part where it was a little on the nose, where it didn't really have to be, in my opinion.
I mean, I guess you show that to show that it's blanks, just to like, the daughter picked blanks, and it could be, she doesn't know that they're blanks, and she picks them, and it's divine intervention versus he shoots and he missed. Mm-hmm. Even though it's point blank range, but he could have missed and shot over, or the gun misfired. Like versus that shows that that they were
pointed in the right place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that he had obviously had every intention of doing it, and that's why he was like, "Oh, she was my angel," blah blah blah. The thing that whole speech. But it was a very good and powerful scene. And like I had remembered by the time we got there, I was like, "Oh yeah, these are blanks." Like. I didn't remember when she purchased that they were blanks, but by the time we got to that scene, the only thing that bothered me was she said, "My father doesn't read English," and then he read the name and got the phone book, and that's how he found him. He can't read English, but he could read the name he could read the name on the bottom to find the man's name in the phone book. Because he said, "Did you read your insurance policy?" "No, my father doesn't read English."
Yeah. Good point. One point that I keep missing. Okay, so you have Terrence Howard's wife. I think it says here she's played by
Andy Newton.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's a very gut-wrenching scene whenever Matt Dillon's character basically fondles her on the side of their car while he's like provoking the husband. It's just sick. And so how that collides later is she gets in a car accident, and it's Matt Dillon who responds, and he goes to save her. Now, I was hearing a lot of criticism as like, "Oh, this totally doesn't make sense as this guy's like moment of redemption or whatever." And I didn't read it like that at all. I read it as, this is a cop, this is his job, this is what he does. It has nothing to do with his heart, the fact that he would run into any burning vehicle or any crashed vehicle to go help somebody. It just happened to be the person that he totally humiliated. And so that's kind of where I was getting back earlier with how this movie is all about showing how people act when they collide. So in a casual situation, he profiled somebody and humiliated them. But in a crisis situation, the same person he helped. So it doesn't matter who you are capable of either one. And I think that's a very, very clever thing that this movie does.
Yes, because he's still a piece of shit. Like, and
he's not redeemed at all, but he did his job in the moment and saved somebody's life.
Yes, he saved her, and obviously that's a good thing. Obviously, he did a good thing, but that doesn't necessarily make him a good person. Just like if a good person does a bad thing, like, does the fact that he saved her life take away the fact that he finger banged her on the side of the road the day before? No.
Or
just like
totally disrespectful to that woman to her face. The list goes on and on with him.
Yeah, like, does the day, if he had not had if that conversation with Shaniqua on the phone, and she's like, yeah, come talk to me in person and we'll see what we can do about your father. My name is Shaniqua. I'll help you out. If that conversation had went that way as opposed to the way it did, and then, we're looking for such and such Lincoln Navigator, and does that change that event? Like, is that how that goes? Does that event? I mean, that event basically is shaped up that he's pissed off. Oh, you're you people, and then she hangs up the phone and he's pissed, and that's where that leads to that. And then that way he has that whole conversation with her in person, where he's like, "My father hired you people when people weren't." Like, it's like, you people? You mean people? Like, he was hiring people. Like, yeah. So he's definitely, he's definitely racist, and he's definitely sad when Ryan Philippe tries to report it, and the African American sergeant's like, or lieutenant is like, you mean I've had a racist under me for like 8 years? Nah, fam. You know what? You fart a lot and you want your own car. Like,
yeah.
Like, you can't. Like,
he's hard. He's worked hard enough as it is to get the job. He's not going to stir no pot. So
yeah. So no, like, and you can see, like, she would like rather sit in that car, it hurt, than have him help her until he's like, lady.
Character.
And he's like, no, I'm not gonna fuck with you. Like, I'm here to save you. Like, no. And in the whole scene, I guess, where people are like, this is redemption, because he's like, oh, I'm gonna reach across your lap, and like, he pulls her dress up, and it's like, well, he wouldn't have had to do that if he hadn't been a douche canoe the day before. He could have just been like, I'm gonna get you out of here.
So, the other major character I want to talk about is Ryan Philippe. And so he's the well-intentioned cop. He's the one that wants away from his racist partner. And so he's out on his own. He's out on his own, and he gets called to the whole Terrence Howard, right? Terrence Howard situation. And he recognizes him, and that him and his partner totally humiliated him and his wife in the previous incident. And so he tries to de-escalate the situation, but Terrence Howard's in the total opposite state of mind, where he is sick of all this stuff happening, and he just needs to lash out at the world. And so at this point, we're kind of guided to believe that Ryan Philippe's well-intentioned nature there blew up in his face, I guess, essentially. Like, he was trying to help him, and he spit in his face. So I think he's feeling a little burn from that. Okay, and so go ahead.
You also have where the scene after that, where he's like, they're changing in like the cop locker room, and he tries to talk to one of the cops, and like all the cops are just basically like, get the hell out of here, because he picked helping like a perp, when the perp was like, hey, fuck you pigs, etc., etc. So
right.
Yeah. So he's feeling, burnout over, whatever Terrence, however he felt about the whole Terrence Howard thing, and then, like, basically all of the cops are like, we hate you, kind of deal.
Yeah. And so he's off on some back roads, and he comes across one of the characters from the beginning who was working with Ludacris, in that holdup or whatever. And it turns out that he's actually Don Cheadle's brother. So there's all these connections. Anyways, so he picks up this guy, and they're chatting, and Ryan Philippe's character is just all bent out of shape, and everything that this guy is talking about, he is like, yeah, whatever. He's just he's being a dickhead, and it escalates to the point to where he thinks he has a gun and he shoots him in the car. And I thought this was the one area where I thought stretching the fact that Ryan Felipe would go from being this well-intentioned guy to, actually murdering somebody in the car next to him. Maybe it was a little contrived, the fact that, he is picking up this hitchhiker in the middle of nowhere. This is the scene that doesn't quite come together for me. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's all right. So I get what they're going for here. So this is, you got a stranger, pulling a gun out or pulling the St. Christopher medal, because that's the tie-in, is that the younger brother, every time they rob a car, he puts the St. Christopher medal on the car for like good luck. And Ryan Philippe had a St. Christopher medal on his car, and dude starts laughing, and he's like, people, and he's like, oh man, take your hand out of your pocket. What do you got? What do you got? And he's like, I'll show you. And the idea is to show that even the best well-intentioned person sometimes has their prejudice. I guess after that whole incident with Terrence Howard, not Ryan Howard. But all that that changes that is if dude man's like, hey man, I carry a St. Christopher medal in my pocket, like look what I got. But obviously he doesn't want to open up and talk because Ryan Felipe's character's been a dick to him the whole time, where he's like, hey man, I like hockey. And he's like, yeah, of course you do. Because of course stereotype is black people don't like hockey. That's a white person game, which they've already touched out in the movie when Ludacris is like, you only say you like the Kings to piss me off. And he's like, but I do like hockey. So, it's that even the best intentions, your prejudices can get the best of you on bad days or in bad moments, in a weak moment, in a bad moment. Maybe it is a stretch, but it was. And then the fact that instead of him being a police officer, instead of calling the cops and saying what happened, what's he do? He
burns the car.
He pushes the body out to the side of the road, which is near the beginning of the movie. We circle back to that, and then he burns the car.
So yeah, his character definitely falls apart, and that doesn't quite come together for me. An interesting fact that I learned was the fact that Paul Haggis, he was in a interview about this. He's the director of the film, and he actually got inspiration for this because him and his wife went to a Blockbuster, and somebody put a gun in his face, and that got him and took their car, and that got him thinking about these kind of encounters and where would that person go next, and that's how he came up with the story. I still really like this movie, despite the negative reputation. I can see why this movie rubs people the wrong way, and I think a lot of people just come at it with this negative perception to begin with, and they don't give it a chance. And maybe if Brokeback Mountain would have won, like maybe people would lay off this and actually see what values this thing does have. I think they both have very important messages. It's a flip of a coin. I mean, you have this subtle, elegant film about love and taboo and sadness that these people can't be together, and then you have this very in-your-face racial drama. Some people call this Oscar bait. Do you buy that at all?
I mean, maybe it could be. Like, it definitely has some of those. It has a lot of good actors. It had, which I mean they both do, but it disconjointed timeline. It talks about something that's taboo, which is in race. So I mean, it definitely feels like it could be Oscar bait, but I feel like an Oscar bait movie, like this movie also it has a good storyline. It is entertaining. Like I feel like a lot of Oscar bait movies, like you take something and you make a movie and it's very dry, or it isn't going to appeal to the masses. And I feel like this movie, at least to me, would appeal to the masses because of the people who was in it and the storyline. But I could be wrong. My tastes have changed a lot over the years. So, but
I think in hindsight, while Crash was my favorite movie back then, I think they draw about even with me now. And in retrospect, Brokeback Mountain probably would have been better for cinema if Brokeback Mountain would have, took that final step forward and become the first, predominantly gay story to get the top prize. So it didn't happen that way. I think we've said everything we had to say about this. I give this one 4.5 stars as well. I think they come even with me. I didn't know what to expect coming into this, but they draw even.
I actually gave this one 5, and actually I'm gonna. But between, if I'm going to stick between just the two, I would say I would stick with this one winning the Oscar, and I actually think if they took this movie, with what's going on in the world today, I think actually this movie would probably win an Oscar now. But I actually think Walk the Line should have won the Oscar. It wasn't even nominated, and I think it should have won. It's a freaking the powerhouse movie with two very crazy powerhouse performances. I can't speak to Philip Seymour Hoffman, but like Joaquin was great in that movie. Reese was great, and obviously she won. But I think it should have been Walk the Line.
There you go. That was my favorite movie of that year as well. I think the Oscars were a little bit burnt out at that point. Ray had, I'm not sure if Ray was the year before this or a couple years before this, but that had gotten a lot of acclaim, so maybe they were a little worn out on the musician bio pick at that point. So, all right, interesting conversation. I hope we did it justice. But we got another dispute coming up in just a sec. And we're back. This is the first show where we've had 2 breaks, huh, Joey?
Oh yeah, I mean, considering the last episode was super long, and the Halloween one was also super long. I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised it's the first one where we had 2 breaks.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's get back into some Oscar snub talk. We are jumping forward in time to 2011, where my pick, The Social Network, was snubbed, in my opinion. Some others, not quite as a controversial snub as the last one, but King's Speech took it that year. Joey, what were some of the other nominees that year?
You had Black Swan, The Fighter, Inception, The Kids Are All Right, 127 Hours, The Social Network, Toy Story 3, True Grit, and Winter's Bone. And this was the second year where they had jumped up to 10 nominees instead of 5. And I believe you said that was after The Dark Knight had gotten left off of the ballot.
I believe that's what I heard. Everybody thought The Dark Knight was worthy of that Best Picture nod. So they upped the nominees that following year. And then I think now it's traditional that they'll nominate about 7. But yeah, those first few years, they definitely had a handful of movies. And I mean, I would say the Inception and the Black Swan were my favorite of the bunch. I'm not sure if I saw Black Swan before the Oscars or not. But definitely midway through the show, I was feeling Social Network pretty strong for this Oscar, but it didn't go that way. So let's dive right in.
They left the town off. Those was back before I think Ben Affleck really had a lot of cred. But I think he got his with Argo. So
certainly.
Yeah, but
another snub. I believe Colin Firth. He was snubbed the previous year for his role as a gay man in A Single Man, I believe, is what I've heard, and he won the best actor in the King's Speech. But phenomenal performance. We'll get there. He lost out the previous year to Jeff Bridges, who won for Crazy Heart, I believe. All right, let's jump right into The Social Network. So this is a dramatized version of the creation of Facebook story. It was directed by our boy, David Fincher, and was written by Aaron Sorkin. I've been a fan of Aaron Sorkin for a long time. He was a writer on The West Wing. He's actually gotten into directing his own movies. He's known for very smart, quick dialogue. He did a series called The Newsroom, which I thought the first season of that show was awesome. That was on HBO. But I guess one of the chips against The Social Network in this dogfight is the fact that it's not exactly historically accurate. Have you actually heard about some of this, Joey?
I mean, I didn't know that it wasn't historically accurate, but like, obviously when you do an adaptation of a movie, like, things are going to change to be either more entertaining, or probably for something like this, where obviously the large portion of this is about a court case, there are some things that probably have to be changed.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest ones I've heard is that the girlfriend that breaks up with him is fictionalized. She actually isn't a character. And we'll get more into why I think that works as a story convention moving forward. But I think that was one of the big ones, because I actually pulled up a YouTube video of Mark Zuckerberg, in some kind of question answer thing. And they're like, okay, so what about Social Network isn't right? And he's like, where do I begin? They got all my shirts right, but couldn't get my relationships right. So, historical accuracy has never been a huge, detractor from me. I'll hear these things and I'm like, oh, okay, but that really doesn't make my opinion of a movie sway. I still love Braveheart. I had a great time watching Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay, so we jump right into the movie, and you have Jesse Eisenberg, which is just phenomenal in this role as Mark Zuckerberg. He's so good at playing this this total condescending jerk. But I like him so much more in this movie compared to some of the other stuff I've seen him in, is because he's a genius, and the movie is so good at showing the gears in his head turning in terms of creating Facebook, but at the same time he has this poker face to where it's implied that he's screwing a lot of people over in the meantime, but that's never outright apparent. So it's so cool to see how he becomes likable in the sense that he's admirable for being a genius, but at the same time, he's doing these things, and it's not overtly obvious that it's he's to blame.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. When he ends up talking to the Von Winkles,
that's talk about a great special effect. Armie Hammer playing both isn't the Winklevoss?
Winklevoss, yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that was one person. I thought that was actual two twins, like an actual set of twins. So.
Yep, that's Armie Hammer playing both guys. So yeah, terrific special effects there. So how about you? Are you an Eisenberg fan in general? Does his assholiness turn you off at all?
No. He played the role to a T. It's maybe even I started never thinking about it. Maybe this is what led, people to think that he could be Lex Luthor. And I know a lot of people ostracized him, or whatever you want to say, maybe not ostracized, but lambasted him for that role. And it's like, brother, you get told you can be Lex Luthor, you're going to take that role. And I think he did. That movie is trash, but he did a great job as Lex Luthor. He did the best he could with that role, and that's beside the point here. But I think Jesse Eisenberg is a very good actor. But seeing him as an asshole compared to something like Zombieland, where it's a much different role than what you're used to seeing him in. But it was real great. He his facial mannerisms and stuff. Where he would kind of get this real piercing look and stuff, and it was very really added a whole nother level to it that I never really I didn't notice it while it was going on, and as I was thinking about it later, I was like, man, that was a really good aspect to it.
All right, so whenever I sat down to watch this a few nights ago, it was pretty late, and I must say, the first hour of this movie just totally zipped by for me. I was just totally engaged, and I really had to peel myself out of it. I was just like, okay, it's getting really late. I need to finish this the next day. And one of the things I appreciated most about this viewing was how much I love this score. It's so tender and kind of subtle, but it has like this new age technology feel to it too, which perfectly matches with the whole technology vibe of this, being about the revolution of social networking with Facebook being not the first, because MySpace was out there beforehand. I was never on MySpace. But yeah, just such a great. Did the score stand out to you at all?
I mean, I really don't remember it, but I think that's kind of like the point that you're making is like you noticed it like on your second through. I never really like noticed it, but I think the thing is I was really honestly caught up in Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield and Justin Timberlake so much that I just did not actually really notice it like in like at all.
I'm definitely feeling you there, because I remember watching the Oscars that night, and I remember the category for best score coming up, and me rehearing the music, and me thinking, well, that's really subtle, but at the same time, there's this sadness to it that really matches this character so well in terms of his inability to actually like socially connect with people, because he's so smart and so condescending, and he's able to make the world's most revolutionary social networking program, but his character in this film is just has a hardest time actually connecting with people and on that level. So that's a very remarkable aspect of this that totally draws me in. And at that point, I was listening to the score there, I was just like, man, I really hope this is the winner this year. It didn't go that way. All right, let's talk about Facebook in general a little bit. So I was a sophomore in college whenever the Facebook came out. I remember my girlfriend, now wife at the time, just like, hey, let's check this out. And I remember getting the Facebook profile and didn't really do anything with it. And then I'm not sure how much longer later, but Facebook came out. And I remember building my profile on there and really haven't looked back since. Did you actually have a Winthrop account whenever you first got on, or when?
All right, so I did have MySpace, and so
okay.
I remember when Facebook came out, like you had to be a college student, like you were saying. I did not have a Winthrop account anymore. So how I actually got a Facebook account was what would have been my sophomore year. I had moved to Charleston to live with Melissa. So my girlfriend my freshman year, and you remember Melissa. And we had started dating again. Well, she still had a Winthrop account somehow, because she also had a Trident Tech account.
Okay.
So I used her login from her Winthrop account to create my Facebook account, and she had one through her Trident Tech account. Why I remember this 15 years later, 15 years later, I don't know, but I do. And, I had that until how many ever years later when anybody could join, and then I made it I just changed the email to my personal email, and boom. But yes, this technically is the same email account or the same Facebook account that I had then.
Yeah, I've never. I know some people along the way have re-upped on theirs, but yeah, I've kept mine the whole time, and it's changed and changed and changed. I don't recall if when I got on, if we were actually cross-connected with other schools yet. I remember that happening. I remember when technical schools were able to join, and then I kind of got bent out of shape when high schoolers got in the mix, and then, the whole world could join. And I was pretty salty about that at first. Like when my sister, who didn't go to college or go to like a university or whatever, and then my parents joined, like, I was like, gosh, this is my thing. I enjoyed having like my connections with my friends on here. But I mean, they were able to evolve. I mean, this movie does a really great job at, this became the definitive platform because of the exclusivity. But by it evolving and growing and becoming useful in so many more ways, it ended up being the worldwide platform, and it was still managed to be just as brilliant.
Yeah, you talking about like when high schoolers were, I remember thinking like, oh man, like why, like this is for adults. Like high schoolers shouldn't have access to this, and like now it's just it's crazy. Like high schoolers have access to so many things they shouldn't have access to.
The other day I saw a little like friend suggestion from this little Cub Scout, and I'm a leader in this Cub Scout pack, and I think he's like a Weeblo and like, yeah, he's a little bit of an older Cub Scout, but I saw that he was actually on Facebook, and I'm like, come on now, at least wait till middle school, I guess. It gets pretty awkward when you got kids that young on Facebook.
I mean, yeah, my kid doesn't have one, but like she has an Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, which like her mother talked to me about it, and it's because she draws and does art, and wants a way to share her art and stuff online with her friends and stuff. But they were like, it's very private, and I'm like, like, thank you for including me, but like y'all are the ones parenting. I'm 6 hours away, but so and she added me on Instagram, and it was like really weird. I'm like, my daughter has added me on Instagram. This is really weird. I feel really old. I feel really effing old right now.
Yeah, true. So I just love those parts about this movie where, like, in conversation, they come up with ways of, like, why the relationship status is important, or the wall. There's only a couple, but too bad they don't mention remember poking on Facebook? That was, like, one of the original, like, little things that was just totally ridiculous. This person poked you.
Would you like to poke back?
That was a pretty silly early thing, but man, I just love, like, so after, like, he has this heated conversation with this girl, and she breaks up with him, and he starts blogging about it, like trash talking her, and he gets a little drunk, and he's just like, all right, let me put my skills to the use, and he comes up with this face smash site where it's the whole hot or not concept. And I remember, I never played anything like that, but I do remember seeing that at one point in college, my freshman year, where somebody was playing that. How about you?
Like, I don't personally remember seeing that, but like, I mean, I've seen tons of things like that, like which celebrity or like which person's hot. I don't ever remember seeing it with like people I know, but I do see it. Tell us which celebrity's hotter, and we'll tell you which celebrity you should marry.
Oh yeah, they got like everything on.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. But yeah, I mean, we could probably go on and on and on about, I mean, what Facebook does. I mean, I have, like, when I studied abroad, I loaded all my photos up on there, and that's been my way to instantly go back and see all those different pictures I posted, and they're still all right there, safe and secure. You schedule events on Facebook. Gosh, I mean, there's an instant mess. I mean, we start this podcast every 2 weeks by me saying, hey, Joey, are you ready, on Facebook Messenger? So
and then like an hour later you're actually ready. But yes.
Thanks for the jab. I deserve it.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, like, do I even actually, we have each other's actual phone numbers, but we just message through Facebook Messenger. Like, I don't actually text people. I use Facebook Messenger because it's usually faster than texting people. Yeah. And you have a bubble with their profile picture, whether it's their actual picture of their face or whatever avatar icon they pick, and that's what I associate with it. And some, like one of my roommates, he'll keep the same picture for months, and then he'll change it like 7 times in like 20 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god, what are you doing? So yeah,
I love I don't know what I would do without Facebook. I mean, between the social events we do, sharing birthdays, I mean, gosh, how good is it to, hear from people you haven't heard from in 10 years, wish you a happy birthday on your birthday. Facebook's great. There's that movie, you haven't seen 8th Grade yet, have you?
Nope.
It wasn't until I watched 8th Grade to where I figured out the concept, because a lot of younger kids will be like, oh yeah, Facebook is for old people. And what they're really saying is, my mom and dad are on Facebook, so I'm going to do these other more confusing social networking platforms that mom and dad haven't figured out yet, so I can have a little bit of privacy. I think that's what that actually means, because Facebook is by far the most useful, efficient thing out there. But I think the teens like their own space.
And they like MySpace.
Nah. Actually,
no one likes MySpace anymore except for like bands.
Exactly. I was going to get at. I was actually a producer for a magazine show for a while, and whenever we had a band come on, they would always give me their MySpace page, and then that would like make their music start playing and stuff. So that was a pretty cool thing that MySpace had until I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh no, like MySpace, like it's so different than, like, I know you said you never had one, but it's like so much different than like when you had MySpace, because like the cool thing about MySpace was it was totally customizable. You used to spend like so much time like trying to get like HTML codes and like have a different background and put pictures from like Dropbox in where you wanted it and all this different stuff. And you had your, obviously your top 8 or your top 20 list for your friends, and you used to rank your friends. This is my best friend. This is my second best friend. Oh, you pissed me off. You're out of the top 8. And then you had a song. Like you had a song that played. And now apparently you can do that on Facebook. And it's like, and people are like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's like, bro, I was doing this in like 2004 on MySpace. Like,
but getting back to the movie, just that whole opening montage of him creating, this platform and becoming recognized in the school for what he did, just almost hypnotic with how that part comes together. And to think that this movie is all based off of a court case where he has, his business manager who he screws over, and then the people who like hire him to make like a Harvard only kind of Facebook page that they call like the Harvard Connection, and he hears that idea and it instantly just springs off in another direction with it. So the movie is based off of like them like accusing him of taking all this stuff, and his perspective on it is, I'm smarter than everybody in this room, and what I create is my property, and it doesn't matter how I got there, it's mine. And in the end we see like, he has enough money to where he can appease these people with these little deals, and he'll be just fine. But it's he doesn't want to go out without a fight, for sure.
I mean, yeah, basically it's just pay them and this will go away kind of deal. But yeah, throughout the movie, I mean, you see he really just, whether or not he stole from the Winklevosses or not, that's probably debatable, but he definitely screwed over Andrew Garfield's character. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But like he told him, it was like, you made a bad business deal with your own company, but at the same time, it's like, this dude's your friend. Why would you put him in that position to do that? Mm-hmm. It's like, but like I always tell people, the people who were rich, Zuckerberg and oh God, I cannot think of his dude's name. The guy Amazon. But Bill Gates probably too, and Steve Jobs, and the guy who owns
the tech moguls of the world.
Yeah, all these people who are multi-time billionaires, they didn't get rich by working hard. I mean, they probably did at some point, but they got rich by stepping on the backs of other people and exploiting people. And you see that when he exploits the person who's his only friend, his actual friend, like the person who isn't trying to use him to get rich, the guy who was actually like his friend, and he exploited him. So,
and then Justin Timberlake, he plays Sean Parker, who was the founder of Napster. That hits home for me too. I was in middle school when I discovered Napster, and I can't tell you how many darn songs I downloaded on a couple of my computers, and they ended up crashing, and I lost them all, and then I would start all back over. Napster. I mean, popularized the MP3, killed the CD, and changed the music industry. And it went in flames because it was totally not ethical or copyright legal, but it definitely made an impact.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I never used Napster. Like by the time I really got a hold of what it was basically done, and people were already using like Lime. It probably wasn't LimeWire yet. It was probably like Kazaa. I don't remember,
I remember
which one
those
really
two.
came.
Which
LimeWire.
those were so much harder to use because you'd have to like a lot of the songs were like all coded. They would not coded, but they would make very complicated ways of finding stuff. So, but Napster was so easy to use. And yeah, Sean Parker. It's really interesting to see his character. He is with this girl from Stanford, and he sees her profile on there. She says it's super addictive. He's like instantly in love with it, wants to meet him right away, and this sparks this whole new like entrepreneurial drive in the Mark Zuckerberg character, played by Jesse Eisenberg, and I think he has this kindred spirit with Sean Parker because he used his smarts to make this innovative platform, and he envies him in a way. But at the same time, I think he grows tired of kind of his more like party ways toward the end, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, because definitely he wants to do this innovative stuff and then like party and get girls and get laid and get high and etc. And he's like, bro, I just want to keep making this thing cool. Like he lives the Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg and Sean Parker is like, yeah, this is a means to an end to like get money and get girls.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
it was pretty. I love the whole like hackathons he would throw. Man, such good. Like I just love movies where you see an artist in their craft, and you see that a whole ton in here. My biggest problem with this movie is it almost like it hits a brick wall, and then all of a sudden, they walk into the room, and the settlements have been made, and that's pretty much it. But then the final scene is so brilliant because he decides he's going to friend this girl that his spite over her like dumping him like led to this whole like desire to trash talk her, which led to him making Face Smash, which led to his notoriety, which got this, building one after another after another. All right. And so basically, he's this guy who has a super hard time connecting with people on a social level, building the world's greatest social networking platform. And so then he clicks like on her profile or whatever, and then just sits there and refreshing. And I can't tell you how many times, I mean, it sounds pathetic, but there'll be times when I post a letterbox entry or whatever, and I'll wait a few minutes, I'll hit refresh and see if anybody's liked it or not. Those little like notoriety portions of like this whole social networking sphere is there's something about it that you just kind of do it. I mean, you know what I'm talking about?
oh yeah, I mean, it's especially like instant gratification, and like he's sitting there like, is she gonna accept me? Because I think he realized obviously that he messed up when he said all those things on the blog, and like
For sure.
he definitely cared for her, and he wants to see if he's gonna like if she's over it, and if she's gonna friend him, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I definitely hit those letterbox reviews. Oh, who's liked it? Who's liked it? Has Justin liked it yet? Has these other people who I have a ton, I'm over 300 now. I'm catching up to you, 2,000, 3,000 plus guy, and it's like, I got like 10. Oh, I'm almost at 20 likes. Woo! And I think like, whatever.
Yeah, it's what it is.
But we're not the amount of social media likes that we get.
Yeah, there you go. Oh goodness. So yeah, and he's like the founder of this whole this whole platform, but yet he falls victim to everybody else to where he's clicking refresh to see if this person, this girl, actually responded to him. Which I remember back in the day, I would you'd meet just these random people and be like, oh, you on Facebook, and you track them down on Facebook, and you'd hit friend and you see if anything comes of it, yes or no, and it just has totally changed the way there's not been a day in the last 20 years, probably more than that I haven't gone to Facebook and just seen what's up. And now it's even easier. It's on our phones. I mean, that's been a long time, but still,
Well, It's not quite 20 years, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I've been married 12 years, so plus, yeah, so 15, yeah. It's been a while.
It's been a
Been
hot
a
minute.
long time. Yeah. So, goodness gracious. So yeah, I just think this movie is so relevant to like everything like that we do now. And it really hits home because I mean we use Facebook, and this was about the creation of Facebook, and we were a part of like seeing all this first be delivered to the public and just gobbling it up. So, wow. All right, so let's. I guess we'll move. I mean, anything else more to say about The Social Network, Joey?
I don't believe so. No, I think it's we probably can move on here. What'd you give it?
I would.
I mean, I have an idea, but
I would say 4.5 on this one, just because it does have that little problem with the how it kind of, and it could easily go to a 5, but the ending so abruptly does kind of jolt me away from the 5-star, but it's awfully close. But that's the one issue with it for me. Let's jump all over to King's Speech, which was directed by Tom Hooper, also director of Cats, believe it or not. So this movie is simply a delight. It's really hard to say anything bad about this movie. It's a historical drama about the Prince of, is it Wales?
no, he was the Duke of York, I believe.
Duke of York, that's right. Duke of York, his father passes away. His older brother is meant to take the throne. He is involved with a divorcee. And so by the crown's affiliation with the Church of England, I believe, he is...
Him being the head of the Church of England.
Right. So he can't be king, and so his little brother has to. And his little brother's been plagued with having a stutter his entire whole life, which Colin Firth does a brilliant job of really bringing that to life. The movie's all about, his wife, played by Helen Bonham Carter. They've exhausted all options, and so they find this guy played by Jeffrey Rush, and he's a delight. And this movie just spins off into like these really magical scenes of them like practicing and encouraging him to have better speech and all the interesting techniques he does in order to move his mouth, build his mouth muscles, his diaphragm, and all this stuff. And it's just so charming. The acting is fantastic in it. You want to jump in with anything before I get too ahead of myself?
I mean, this movie, honestly, I went into this thinking that I was going to be bored. I thought I was not going to enjoy it, and the whole time, I was like enthralled. I mean, I love history, and just everybody's performance was freaking phenomenal. Jeffrey Rush was like, "This is my movie," and him and Helena Bonham Carter, I thought, put this movie on their backs and just freaking carried it. Not that Colin Firth wasn't great, because he was phenomenal, but I thought like every scene that had Jeffrey Rush and Helena Bonham Carter just made the movie that much better.
Okay, she's fairly subtle in this. I mean, compared to everything else she's in. So.
Well, I mean, like, I think everyone just automatically either associates her with either as, especially if they're younger, as being Bellatrix, or they just automatically, they're like, where's Johnny Depp and Tim Burton?
Yeah.
And like I think she's just very underrated.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And this is the second time we've had this conversation, I guess, because we talked about her when she in a Tim Burton Johnny
Sweeney Todd. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the cool stylistic things I really liked about this movie is, did you notice how like whenever they're like walking down corridors, how the camera would do this thing where it was pushing back to follow them, or vice versa? I really enjoyed how the camera would follow the characters around. It made it really visually dynamic instead of just staticness.
Okay, no, I didn't really notice that. I mean, I honestly I was just so focused on
Hmm.
like the dialogue and like trying to pay attention to like what historical aspects they were putting in there. So like when they started talking about like, his older brother had became king, but then he wanted to marry this twice divorcee, and then started talking about like the Hitler stuff and leading towards in World War II,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, well, where's Churchill? And then Churchill shows up, and it's another
Yeah.
person from Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and then the other they had the second Dumbledore was in there.
Yeah. That's he plays the that's
Yeah, he was
the father, right?
yeah, he was the father, and like his voice hits him. Like me and Carl, like, wait a minute, I know this voice, and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, and it's just like, okay, and it's just, and there was just a lot going on, and like in a good way, to like honestly, I just was not expecting, to be honest with you, and it was very interesting to see the way like the old radios were set up, if assuming that that's historically accurate, and I would imagine that it was, and like the way they just kind of built, like we're building and just building, and it was just like, and obviously the name of the movie and the way it was set up, like you knew that they were building to the part where he was going to get through the speech, but I thought it was so very well done.
And I had a friend in college who actually was a fellow cinephile who we had a lot of long conversations about Stanley Kubrick with, who had a stutter. And so, have you seen that firsthand, somebody with that kind of impediment?
I mean, I've dealt with some of them, because I work with the public pretty well, all my life basically, and so I mean I've come across some people, and it was a little bit, as they called it, a stammer, and I think definitely it was a little more where he would talk and then stammer, more like in pauses, I think, in that, except for when he had that that fight with his brother, but
Yeah.
it was.
It's crazy how it's like some kind of like part of it is some kind of psychological confidence thing to where they really get at the fact that he's felt belittled his whole life, and that's kind of been a part of it.
Yeah, and like when he gets like pissed off or sings or whatever, or he starts, they basically mimic that scene from Boondock Saints, and he starts throwing the F word around. It was like, all right then.
I mean, you could tell what was coming with the whole, like, the first session where he, like, reads some Shakespeare, but he's listening to music, and he thinks, like, he's doing a terrible job reading it. Then he listens back to it later, and he's doing an amazing job. A little later, I was just like, so whenever he's making all these speeches, why don't they just blast some music in his ears, and maybe he'll get through it all fine. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, I feel like, you just, put a pair of headphones on that's, playing some music, because I mean they show the people having headphones, like obviously it's the 30s, but I mean they show the other
Record
people
players.
having headphones. Yeah, I mean, well, they show them having like the headphones to like hear, like definitely
Right.
some early headphones, like maybe they didn't
sure.
have the ability to do that in some way, but maybe I'm sure they could have come up with something. I mean,
one thing that crossed my mind as the movie was going along was that for this being London or whatever, you didn't ever get that typical like Big Ben shot or like shot of Parliament. You get I guess that big field. I'm not sure what the name of it is. We do see a big field stadium shot. You get the inside of Westminster Abbey. But for being a period piece, they stuck to interiors instead of like the grand scape of London. It was an interesting thing I noted just for, this being, a British movie, very British movie. Oy. Gosh, you gotta love the climax, where Jeffrey Rush is basically conducting him, and then he delivers this very empowered speech, and it's set to Beethoven's Seventh, and gosh, I just had the chills all over the place, watching that, and I love the line about how like him and his daughter, I think, are listening to Hitler, and she's like, "Daddy, what's he saying?" And he's just like, "I don't know, but he's doing a really good job at it."
yeah.
It almost like it crossed my mind. Like after watching this, I was like, "Have you ever heard of Triumph of the Will?"
I don't think I have.
It's a Nazi propaganda film from the 30s or so or whatever, and it's like one of like the 101 greatest or movies you should see before you die, just because it's this definitive piece of Nazi propaganda. Like, it never crosses my mind to watch that, but seeing Hitler's impact, what was about to happen to Europe, and how this character had to step up and match that strength, it makes me want to go and watch something like that, just to kind of get a feel of what that part of history is.
I mean, because that's one of the things, like, Hitler was known for being such a great orator. I mean, his speeches were, I mean, how do you go out and spew all that rhetoric with hate, and you get all those people behind you?
Yeah.
And then, the thing I remember, I don't really remember hearing a lot about George VI's speech, but I do remember hearing a lot about Churchill and a lot of his speeches, or at least a couple.
And even Churchill says that, didn't he say that he had a stutter at one point, and he says that he got over it?
Yeah, at least in the movie. Now whether or not that's accurate or just added, but I mean, it's very possible,
Yeah.
So
yeah, this movie was a delight. 2 hours, it flies by. Great characters, great characters. Really touches on a disability that people suffer from, and it touches on a pivotal point of history. So it checks a lot of boxes for being a perfect contender to win the Best Picture. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want to say this is an Oscar bait movie, because I don't like to say that at all. I don't like to put any movie in that category.
I will say that because it is my opinion.
Okay. But for me, The Social Network is so much more current, relevant, and remarkably told, that I think it's a more ambitious film, where this was a very by-the-numbers film. And while I don't think The Social Network is quite perfect, I think there's that one flaw in it. I do wish history would have rewritten itself, and the social networking boom film got its place in the Oscar pantheon. What's your thought?
All right, so also I gave Social Network also a 4.5. I gave this one a 5.
Okay.
But I don't think, like looking at this when we were talking about some of those other years was just a year of like bangers. There's a lot of bangers, and some of I didn't even see. Like I already touched that like The Town was one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't necessarily know that it should have like win like a Best Picture, and like we already said, Affleck got his anyway. Like I think also looking, you've got Inception in that list, and Inception that's a great movie. It's kind of weird to see just an action movie up there for Best Picture, but like I think Black Swan should have won
Dark Knight Apology.
I mean, maybe for Nolan. But yeah, no, I think that year should have been Black Swan. Like that movie.
Okay. The darker arts of your pick.
I mean, it's real dark, but I just watched this not that long ago, and it touches on so many, like striving to be perfect. Look what it does to you, and it's a lot darker than Whiplash, which also has that touches on striving to be perfect kind of deal. But it's definitely a lot darker kind of deal. Plus, obviously, when Natalie Portman is in your lead, I mean, Natalie Portman is fantastic. So
yeah. So you Black Swan would have talk about stutter. Goodness gracious. So Black Swan would have been your ultimate pick. I think Inception probably would have been my ultimate pick. Maybe Black Swan runner up. But a realistic. Okay. So between these two, what do you?
It would have been The King's Speech. Like I think it's even though I do think it is a movie made to win the Oscar. Like I still think, that being said, I think it was just a little bit better than The Social Network, and I can't really put my finger on specifically why. I just liked it better, and it like honestly, it's probably because of Jeffrey Rush and Helen Bonham Carter because of how good they were. And you want to talk about things being snubbed, like I like you, Christian Bale, and maybe you got your Oscar, like your Best Supporting Oscar, as an apology Oscar for not getting anything as actual Batman, but like you stole Jeffrey Rush's Oscar. You don't steal from a pirate. He's gonna come for you. He's gonna come for you. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Goodness.
He's gonna come for you, Christian Bale. That's all I gotta say.
All right. So I was actually doing a little research, and David Fincher is gonna. He has another movie coming out hopefully this year. It's called Mank. It's about the screenwriter. Okay, so he's in post production on a new movie called Mank. Follows a screenwriter named Herman Mankiewicz. Tumultuous development of Orson Welles' iconic masterpiece, Citizen Kane.
So it's a meta movie. It's a movie about movies. Movies about movies are made to win Oscars. Birdman. Even though it's a movie about theater, but yeah,
the ultimate snub, Citizen Kane.
Right.
I hope this movie comes out this year and I get to see it, and hopefully Fincher. It's been a long time since Gone Girl came out, so I can't wait to see Fincher have another movie.
That's one I need to see. That's like been on my list for a long time.
Oh, Gone Girl's really, really good. Great thriller.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. I think we've been talking a lot about movies, a lot about Oscars tonight. Let's see where we're going next. All right. So, you curious about our next category?
Oh, I'm very, very intrigued.
I was dead set on one, and then in the car tonight I switched over to another one in typical fashion. All right, so we're gonna visit the Criterion we know nothing about.
Oh boy, well that's really interesting that you changed it, because I've changed this one a couple of times.
Yeah, I think you talking about the fact that you've waffled yourself on what to do with this kind of made me curious to see what you landed on. And I mean, I don't know what to say. Okay, my movie's called Gomorrah. The poster shows this enormous man in underwear with a gun. I have no idea what this is. I've been so intrigued to see what this is. I don't know anything about it, and I'm curious. So Gomorrah is going to be something we talk about next time.
Okay, so I will do this correctly because I'll explain. When I first picked, I was being a little cheeky, and I picked a movie that I didn't know anything about the plot, but I knew who the director was, and I knew who the star was. And I guess that's technically more than what we're supposed to do. And that was The Killer. Because I've never seen it. And then I started thinking about how much of a hard time we had, or at least I had, trying to watch Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. And that movie, even though it's in the Criterion Collection, it's not on the channel. Finding it on disc is really hard. Yeah. Although, that being said, I just found a Dragon Dynasty DVD of it for like $15. The Blu-ray was like $60 or something. So, so I do have that movie. I just got it in the mail like this week. And I was going to switch back to it. But, you know what? Spirit of fun. This is a movie, I know it's supposed to be good. I literally know nothing about like its plot, anything, and that's Chungking Express.
Oh, okay. I've seen that.
Yeah,
interesting. Okay, QT Tarantino loves that jam.
Yeah, that is how I found out this movie existed. Was someone posted a picture of it in a group, and it said, I found this for like $3. Is this a good pickup? And it was like Quentin Tarantino presents Chungking Express. That is literally all I know. And that, and I mean, obviously, like I saw that the director is working along, and he directed in the Mood for Love. I think that's the other movie.
Yep, that's his other big one. Yeah, I've seen his two big ones. He has a couple more. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. California, California Dream. You'll get it. You'll get it. California Dreamin' is a huge part of that movie. Yeah, that'll be fun to revisit.
So, and I've never seen anything by him. I don't know anything about his style.
I think he did commercials at one point. He's a very dreamy style. So I'll just leave you with that.
All right, and you said Gamora?
Gamora. Yeah, I can. Yeah, Gomorrah. It makes it easy because the poster actually has GOM, the next line ORRAH. Yeah, no idea what the heck this is.
You said
but
GOM
ORRAH, Gamora.
Is it from 2008?
I don't know. Yes, 2008 by Matteo Garano. An inside look at an Italian modern-day crime family.
Yep, I got it.
Okay. So, yeah. I have no idea what this is. So, I am very curious to learn. Guys with guns in their underwear.
Yep. Well, it's easy. It's on the Criterion channel. Well, all right. This is easy enough.
That makes it, yeah, for sure. All right, okie doke. So thanks so much for everyone for listening to us, talk about movies all night long, Oscars and all. And if you like what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear that. We're appreciated.
Yeah, and if you'd like to answer a question, for us to answer a question on the show, please just send it to theaveragejoesmovieclubcast@gmail.com, or you can go to our Facebook page. There's a big red button you click. It sends it to us automatically, or leave a comment there, or go to our letterboxd. Or if you know us personally, you can just send it to us and ask us. We'd love to get feedback any way that we can. So.
All right. So, Joey, why do we do this show?
Because we love talking about movies.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.